Salam, dear brothers and sisters. Welcome to this special satsang at the Flushing Science Center. This is a special satsang because we have a very special speaker, Dr. Mayur Pandya, the president of the Vancouver Science Center in Canada, is here to talk about the life lessons that he learned while he was with Swami in the physical presence. Dr. Mayur Pandya joined Swami's college in the year 1978, and he spent about 6 years at Swami's Institute. Then on Swami's instructions, he went to Puttaparthi to join the first batch of PhD students, and he completed his PhD in banking and received his PhD from Swami's divine hands in 1989. During these 6 years, he also taught the students of the Sri Sathya Sai Institute, and I'm sure he recognizes many of them who are present here today. Dr. Mayur Pandya was very fortunate to have served Swami when he was there for over a decade, and he's here to share the life lessons that he learned. Brothers and sisters, please join me in welcoming Dr. Mayur Pandya.
Offering my most humble pranams at the lotus feet of our dearest Lord, revered elders, brothers and sisters, loving Sairam to all of you. I'm a little overwhelmed for several reasons, but one, at the love that Brother Sundar is so eloquently expressing. Thank you for taking that moment to pray for my father. He's doing well. He's in Swami's hands. I'm not worried. We've handed over the remote control mouse to Swami. You look after Swami. So that's what he's doing. The other reason I'm thrilled to be with all of you is whenever I'm invited to speak at a retreat, I consider it nothing short of a miracle. When we see those pictures of the gods, Shiva, and the Shiva family, and we see the rat, when the rat is next to Ganesha, gets all the attention. Otherwise, the pest control takes over. Same thing with the snake. And so that is in itself the power of association with the divine. That the most mundane becomes very sacred the moment it is associated with God. And for that very reason, why would so many of you who love Sai spend that extra moment to come on a Saturday to hear a bloke from Vancouver, unless it was my great good fortune to be associated with Bhagavan, to have received his love in such abundant measure, and him having selected me and made this possible today, 2 years after Brother Sundar started inviting me. So nothing happens without his will, and I humbly offer my gratitude to Bhagavan and to all of you, the Sai in all of you, for giving me this chance to stand before you and share my personal journey with Sai. May not be very profound, huge miracles, visions appearing, nothing. Just love received from Swami. The reason why I choose this topic, and I only speak about live lessons at the lotus feet, not about the Bhagavad Gita, not about anything which I know little of. But this topic, initially I started sharing just my experiences of how Bhagavan showered his love on me. And then devotees from the retreats would say, but would you be able to weave in some teachings? Because what happens is when you listen to experiences, you feel good, you feel that fuzzy feeling, and a day or two later it's all forgotten. Whereas the real purpose why Swami gives us these experiences is that he wants us to take home a lesson. Everything that this avatar does has a meaning, a purpose. Nothing is frivolous, nothing is meaningless. And so I put this thing together, and it's my fervent hope that I don't come across as preaching or anything. It's just me thinking out aloud. maybe you also can get something out of it. What I can assure you is that most of it is first-hand from Bhagwan. Coming into the Sai fold. In 1978, my whole family were devotees, except me. I was the black sheep in the family. And I remember a Balavikas class that was held in a neighbor's house. And there was this sloka, Nishesha Jadiya Paha or something. And there was a fat boy next to us. So that Jadiya in Gujarati means fat. And we had a hearty laugh. And that was the last of my Balavikas programs. My mother, who frequently went to Puttaparthi, would tell me, why don't you also come for darshan, etc. And I said, okay. I went up to Swami's picture in the house. I took that picture, which was hanging in the wall, turned it facing the wall. I said, if Swami turns the picture around, then I'll come. And she would shake her head. And this guy is a gone case. Years later, when I joined the hostel, and the first time my mother came to Vrindavan, she said, remember that thing that you said about Swami turning the picture around? Well, he didn't turn the picture around, but he turned you around. And so that's how Swami works. Anyway, it was 1978 Shivaratri when one of the neighbors requested me to escort his son to Vrindavan for darshan. I said, okay, you do the darshan, I do the sightseeing. And we agreed to that. I went there, and during Shivaratri, that Shivaratri evening, we reached there, and we only to find that Bhagwan had left for Muddumalai forest with just a select band of students. So I couldn't care less. Anyway, when we came back 2-3 days later, and he sat in the darshan line to escort this boy, Bhagwan passed by, and the eyes met. And I think that was the clinching moment. Bhagwan is Chitta Chora. He doesn't come with a sword and shield and all that and dramatically capture you. He sneaks inside. And so it looks like that was what his modus operandi was. And of course, he came to Mumbai in May, and my brother was very keen on, my elder brother, Nimish Pandya, was very keen on sending me to Swami's college. I think he filled out the form and submitted it. It was a Thursday morning in June, when suddenly the telegram came, and it was from the principal of the Vrindavan College saying, come for your interview right away. I don't know what happened, but I broke down and cried. I decided to go, and it seemed like there was a remote control, divine remote control took over, and I was sitting on a roller coaster. My dad was getting ready to go to court, and he was putting on his tie. I went up to him and said, Dad, I'm going to Swami's college. He said, okay, and he left for work. I didn't know, and he didn't know that I was not going to come back for 12 years. But he left, and then I went down. I had no white clothes, only Bruce Lee t-shirts. I had long hair. So I rushed down and bought a white kurta pajama, threw it into a bag, and went into unreserved compartment to Vrindavan. And there started 6 years and 12 years of wonderful, wonderful memories with Swami. Then in 1990, I came back to Bombay, left Bhagwan and came back to Bombay. And it seemed like in those initial months after leaving Puttaparthi and coming to Mumbai, and I would stand in the middle of the night looking out of the balcony, everybody's sleeping. I said, was that a dream? It's like Swami came out of the picture like a Disneyland, a Disney movie. And now he's gone back into the picture because that Sannidhi, the proximity is all gone. Then, as Swami answers from inside, he says, I didn't go back into the picture, I went into your heart. And that's where he has been. Being abroad from 95 onwards, 94 onwards, I could not help understanding Bhagwan's way of working in the sense that 12 years very close, day in and day out, just remaining there, hardly going to Mumbai, and now, right away across the ocean, on the other side, next to Alaska. It's quite a distance from Puttaparthi, you know. And that's where he chose to put me. And for 10, 12 years, no darshan at all. So, that was a time of a lot of introspection, And during that introspection, the one thing that I wanted very fervently to do is rediscover Bhagavan. When we were very close to Swami in the protected environment of the ashram, when we see Swami moving around like Brother Sundar is sitting here and talking, and you take him for granted. You are so deluded by his beautiful form that he's just one of us. Initially you count the interviews, and then interviews have no meaning. You're walking in every time you're talking to him. So I wanted to rediscover Bhagavan. I wanted to check whether, did I just accept him the way I did because other people were telling me? And then I also noticed how many a Sai devotee would lose the Sannidhi, would lose this beautiful opportunity to have Bhagavan as a guru, just because of hearsay, just because people said this and that, and then they would walk away from the organization. And so it became very imperative for me, and I'm sure Swami was guiding me through this process, that I wanted to be 100% convinced. I wanted to examine my conviction in my sweet Lord. Was it because of others they said it, or because of me? And then somebody in one of the companies, they had a beautiful training session in that they shared one small anecdote. They said, you are a professor, okay, and professor for how many years? 20 years. Oh, nice. So tell me one thing, is it 1 year's experience multiplied by 20 times, or is it 20 years experience? And that's a very, very different thing. The difference is that whatever the person learned in the first year, he merely applied that for all the 20 years. And it was the same, no development. Whereas in a 20-year experience, it is every year you adding something new and growing in the stature in the career. I said, wow, what as a devotee, as Bhagavan, doesn't that apply to me? Because if I say I have been a devotee for now 32 years or more, am I that devotee that I was in the first year? Or 30 years later I have grown in stature, in love, in understanding, in the spiritual path? And so that was another thing that I really wanted to check. And so with all this happening, I put together this small presentation. And as I'm guiding you through it, it's me thinking aloud. So when I sit in my office and I look around, I consider myself as somebody who is on the spiritual path. And I look around and all my colleagues are busy working hard on the weekends, weekdays, and on the weekends they're looking to the pub, to a movie, to having a good time and getting back in the routine. They never have any spiritual talk, they never have anything. And I'm thinking, so how did this happen? How did they land in that position? And if even I remotely wanted to introduce spirituality to them, if I was convinced that it is an imperative for all of us, how would I talk to them? And so when I look around in this world of chaos, the need of the hour today is that there are so many religions, 17 of them and more, not counting the small subdivisions in that. And in these religions, there are different methodologies. So if I am a new person who wants to believe in God, I have got to choose out of these 17. If not, my parents have chosen something for me, right? Not only that, this world has got so many different spiritual paths. Forget the religions. There are a lot of people who don't go after the religions and they want to go to the spiritual path. So this path of devotion, non-violence, this, that. Again, confusion. You have to pick from this. And then again, there are so many self-improvement gurus who are telling you about what the whole purpose of life is and what the meaning of life. And this interpretation changes all the time. Again, I will pick from that. And the chaos and the confusion, the political strife, all that is happening, in the middle of all this, what can we find with something where the true purpose of life, somebody who should show up into our lives to show us the meaning of life. And that's where I said, I'm standing here, I'm pretending I'm in this chaotic world, and I want somebody to enter into my life and show me, make some sense out of this whole thing. And in that, of course, for us, there's no choice, Bhagavan Sri Sathya Sai Baba. And I'm taking him because I have first-hand interacted with him. He has entered my life, he has said he is my guru, my spiritual master, my goal, my guide, and I want to question him on that. Like Bhagavan said, examine, experience, and have faith. So this is what I wanted to do. And the first, most important, impressive thing about Bhagwan is that he said, my life is my message. So this is refreshing, because he's not somebody who's sitting on a high throne and saying, do this, and then he's doing something else. No, he's himself doing everything that he asks, and that is very, very rare quality, very rare. And that's what for me is most important. Secondly, unlike all the avatars and others in the past, this avatar says, I am the real McCoy, I am the real person, I am the avatar. And he makes no bones of it. Even Rama, even Krishna, everybody, all those avatars of the past were very secretive about it. And here Swami confidently looks you into the eye and says, I am the avatar who's come down on earth. And that takes some guts. That's something which impresses me a lot. That Swami has openly declared his divinity. This was actually a small video clipping that is malfunctioning. But it is Bhagwan sitting in Kashmir in a riverbed, and he's making some marks in the sand, and he's creating a lingam. The power of volition, the power of wishing something, and it happens. If you read, if you heard or seen the video of Ted Henry about Dr. Wayne Dyer, Dr. Wayne Dyer explains how you can get strawberry ice cream. There's 3 or 4 ways. One is whether you go and buy it, another one you wish for it and somebody gives it to you. But the most important way is that you want it and it appears in your hand. And he says, Bhagwan, Baba, Sri Sathya Sai Baba, lives at that plane of existence where there is no gap between wishing and the thing happening. This power, this volition, we've seen it firsthand throughout our lives in the years with Bhagwan. And this comes, I feel, out of purity. It's not even a siddhi. There are people who, out of deep spiritual practices, get these powers and they use it, and as they use it, it depletes. But here, Bhagwan has been doing it for 85 years. Right from his childhood, the snake came out and did something. So you can imagine, from 85 years, he's been doing this. The greatest one is, he's a visionary. The picture on the left is Bhagwan sitting in Chitravati bed with the evening crowd of devotees. You can count them, the evening crowd. That's the darshan in the evening. Okay? And at that time, he said, there'll be a time when you won't be able to come anywhere here. You'll see me as a red spot. That time he said it. And the picture next to that is when Karnam Subbamma, finding that the old mandir, the place where Bhagwan was meeting, was not enough, she built the Pata mandir, or the old mandir. She gave some plot of land. And that was the Dasera crowd. The whole Dasera crowd was that small little room. And look at that now. If somebody at that age can say something and it comes true now, for me personally, I say something today and I don't know if I'll follow it in the evening. So here is a person of great visionary where the unity of thought, word and deed, the very qualities that made Mohan into Mahatma, that very quality Bhagwan is showing in and day out. This is something very precious. I really admire Bhagwan for that. He's mine. Then again, the all-encompassing love that Bhagwan shows. Not just for animals, for students, for devotees, for animals, and also on other planes of existence, which I have some very nice information at the end of the presentation. His message. Now, so I have got very valid reasons now why Bhagwan is my hero. Now I want to say, okay, if he's my hero, what's his message? I need to be sure, because he's got Bhagavad Vahini, Prema Vahini, so many Vahinis. And how am I going to understand which is his main teaching? And looking around, Sathya Sai Avatar declares that the prime duty of man between birth and death is to realize his inherent divinity. So I can humbly but confidently say that this is Bhagwan's main teaching. He really wants all of us to know that we are God too. And in this again I broke it up and I said, let me think it deeper. The prime duty of man, meaning that in my day-to-day occupation and deeds that I'm doing, job, is it important? Yes, it's important. But the prime duty, something that supersedes everything I do in the whole day, that's what we are dealing with right now. Between birth and death, from the moment I'm born, it's not even like when I become 30, then the duty starts. No, from the moment I'm born till I die, the most important preoccupation between this is to realize my inner divinity. There was a very nice quotation by somebody outside, I don't know the author, said that everybody in their life, they have two dates, 1962 dash and some other date. Says those two are common for everybody, but the dash in the middle, how you spend it, is what makes a difference between you and me. And so that is what I feel is that for all of us it's important to do that. The other refreshing thing about things is that all religions and many spiritual paths, they want control for themselves. You are subservient. You are nothing. There are certain pujas, which I don't want to mention out of respect, where they say if you don't do this, you will have damnation. You'll be cursed. Your boat will sink. Your family will drown. And I have very safely deleted all those books from my house because I just can't tolerate that. It's taking all the power away and saying that I am nothing. And here is Bhagwan coming refreshingly and telling me that I am God and you are God. Only thing you don't know it. Meaning that you have full powers exactly like Swami. Who would do that unless they had no agenda? Unless they had only one thing to help you. That is the perfect thing. And that's what is convincing. Of course, there is this letter also that Swami has given and everybody has heard about it and read it. Is that after long searches here and there in temples and in churches, in earth and in heavens, at last you come back, completing the circle from where you started, to your own soul and find that He for whom you have been seeking all over the world, for whom you have been weeping and praying in churches and temples, is actually right within you. I'm condensing it for the time. So with all I always, before the retreat talk starts, before I get up, there is one goddess I have to pray to. It's called Technology Devi. The problem is that there is no Gayatri mantra for it. We had at least some two Gayatris we did before that. Just when you want it to behave, it doesn't behave. And we had some challenges this morning. Now, this message that Bhagwan is giving, so many of the religions or many of the other spiritual paths, they have the message which caters to a particular group, a significant group, not to everybody. But here, this message of Bhagwan, which is so universal, because it is irrespective of caste, creed or color, from the devotees. You just have to watch the devotees and you see the thing is same. Geographical distinctions, devotees are coming from everywhere in the world. And they don't find that the message is anyway not appealing. Wow, I am God? I didn't know that. How come nobody told me? Religion. Anybody from any religion walks in, they don't have to change their religion. They continue, do what you do, because you have to take the common things in all of them. Social status. In the darshan line, you will not believe that a pauper and a pickpocket can be sitting next to a millionaire. And you will not know the difference because they are all shoulder to shoulder sitting and enjoying Bhagwan's grace. Of course, people with spiritual status. We were sitting in a portico one day and there was a Russian gentleman sitting on a chair in the section where the ailing people sit. And Swami had been walking around us and one day he stopped and he said, you know that man there? He meditates for 8 to 10 hours a day. And this is something which we would have never known, but Bhagwan knew. And followed by series of different interviews to that person after. So you can make out that when you're sitting in the darshan line, you never know who's next to you. After all this, Bhagwan says, my life is my message, and I feel that for all that he has given me, I have to make my life his message. This is Guru Dakshina, the most important part. Bhagwan says when you're walking on the road and somebody gives you a lift, you say thank you. Can you imagine what you owe to the Guru that is going to take you across the oceans of different samsara, of all the births? How much gratitude you have to show. And Guru Droham, or ingratitude for that. It's not something that spikes, but it has its very, very sad karmic effect. In the past, Swami has given examples of how, not that the Guru is spiteful to you, but when you show that ingratitude, it reflects very badly on you. So this gratitude that we have to show, I have to show my Swami for all that he has given me, is what I want to do. And in that, I want to live his message, if I have to live his message and say that I am living Swami's message, I put certain beacon lights on the path that I want to go. And these beacon lights are not my own invention. I sat down and I rummaged through my memories and I said, what are the things that Swami asked me during my 12 years? What are the things that he specifically emphasized that I should do? Which then I might have taken for granted, but now I need to put it into practice. Better late than never. So the first one is think of Sai all the time. Next one, emulating Swami, copying him. Third, practicing his presence. Making Swami my best friend. Undertaking a spiritual sadhana. Overcoming the spiritual obstacles, the specific ones that he told me. And last one, living in love. Now, by itself, it sounds very dry. And some of you might think, oh God, there we go, 2 hours, right? But I assure you that I will tell you lots of stories. So, thinking of Sai all the time. Now, the first thing that came to my mind was the story of Parikshit. Maharaja Parikshit was from the Mahabharata, and you know the story, that he was cursed and he had 7 days to live, and in that 7 days he immediately gave up everything, went into the forest, and this huge congregation of great sages and saints was sitting there, and he asked them, somebody who has only 7 days to live, what should he be doing? And all of them were debating and all that, and suddenly a young, very radiant sadhu, hermit walks in, sage walks in, and it's Sukha Maharishi, Veda Vyasa's son. Immediately the whole congregation gets up with respect and puts him on a throne, and then they ask him, and he says, I will give you the Bhagavatam, the story of Krishna. He didn't say, do this Rudram chanting or this chanting and that. No, I'll just tell you the story of Krishna. And for those 7 days, he continuously went on telling this story, and this Parikshit was lost in rapture. No drinking water, no eating anything, no sleeping, no thinking about family, nothing. Just lost in Krishna's story, and as he asked questions, Sukha Maharishi's stories came out even more profusely, powerful. Till the time when the snake actually came and bit, he didn't even realize it. Krishna, 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 gone. Why would we not emulate that? Why not we also continuously think of Sai all the time? At least Parikshit knew he had 7 days. How many of us know how much we've got outside there, right? So we better get onto the ball. And this is the thing that kept in my mind most. So for the next hour or so, I'm just going to tell you stories. Maybe there is some meaning in it, so that we can think Sai throughout this 1 hour. This is Vrindavan when I saw it first. The Sai Ramesh Hall wasn't there. This was one expanse of open space, one nice beautiful tree, Sai Ram shed, a beautiful Krishna there. And we students would line up in the evening and morning darshan that way, so one would come out there. That's how it was. But when any devotee is sitting outside, they're always wondering what's in there. That's a privilege that only the students and some devotees got. So I'll take you on a trip. This is that old mandir. It was a house belonging to a stud farm owner built in the 1800s. And since then, after that, it was Bhagwan's by I wrote some story. And this is something which I cherish, because you see that road going up there, and it goes straight, and there's a portico there, porch where Swami's car would stop, and Swami would get down and go in there. I'll show you the frontal view. That door that you see downstairs is the interview room door where Swami would come out. The room upstairs, the small window upstairs, that was Bhagwan's, next to Bhagwan's bedroom, where he had his clothes and his getting ready room kind of thing. And I was, in the first year, somehow I got a fancy of doing gardening. So we were looking after Bhagwan's garden there, and a few of us would work there whenever we had a chance. And I remember on many occasions we were working in the afternoon. Suddenly we are conscious, or somebody gets up and they see Bhagwan in that window. Swami will open the curtain and he'll give darshan. So all of us would run up and stand like this and forever, and Swami would keep looking, and then he would drop the curtain and we'd start working again. This happened many times, and I remember once when I felt I wanted Ekanta Darshan, meaning Only I should get darshan, nobody else. And that was something very important to me. So I had a strategy in my mind. And I remember I was alone there working in that spot near the bricks. And I felt Bhagwan's giving darshan. I looked around and Swami was actually there with the curtain open. And I don't know what got into me. I realized if I were to raise my hands like this, that is enough cue for all the 30-40 around to come running. So I didn't raise my hands up. I looked at Swami, and now imagine the Swami is looking at me from the window. So I'm looking at Swami, I'm looking left and right to see if anybody is looking at me. Then I'm telling Swami, wait. And I went through that small wicket gate behind. I hid behind the wall so that nobody could see me. But Bhagwan is looking from up there. He can see from up the window on there. And then once I went behind the thing, I did this and I watched. And Swami just stood there, his eyes locked into mine for almost eternity. And then he said like this. So this picture, every picture is like a beautiful memory. Again, the background is, after I permanently settled in Canada, my parents said, okay, now you're not going to come back, so I want all your stuff out of here. And they sent the 2 suitcases with about 1,400 pictures of Swami. And so many mementos, the cushion under Swami's foot, the robes that Swami gave me, Swami's hair, the toothbrush that Swami gave me, everything, the watches he created, all the whole memento, that's my heirlooms. They sent it all there. And as I went through those pictures and photographs, wow. Things that Swami told me 20 years ago, I didn't understand. Now I'm looking at a picture, oh, this is what Swami meant to me. New meaning to the word tube light. Tube light goes tube, true. And it takes only a few minutes, but it took me 2 decades sometimes to understand, oh, this is what Swami meant. So that was the view. Also, this is a place where every Thursday morning and Sunday morning, the devotees would gather for Nagar Sankirtan Darshan, and Swami would come up there. I'll show you some pictures. Again, in that very same spot, Bhagwan would come out from the interview room, and because I was looking after the garden, Swami would come and say, hey Mayur, come here. Initially he used to call me Bombay, then it became Mayur. And then as I would come to one of these spots, Swami would say, so, how was your garden? So I would say, hey Swami, yes, I've just planted these pots, I'm going to do this, and we water it this day, and the full report is given to Swami. At the end of it, Swami says, how is your garden? And I'm saying, what did I miss? I just explained everything, And Swami would walk away, and then again he would ask the next day or the day after. And then it would strike me, oh, Swami is meaning the garden of my heart. He doesn't care about this one. Then I would say, yes, Swami, I'm watering with devotion. Very good. Manchidi, manchidi. And he would hit my hand and walk away. On another occasion, he asked, so where's your father? And I said, Swami is a lawyer. He's in Mumbai, and he's busy with his cases. He's going to come for Dasara. Everything is over. Where is your father? And I would strike, oh yes, Swami, you stunt, and you would hit. So, this is the case. But besides those 3, the other time when he called me this side, and that time he was a little more serious, he said, Mayur, this was like in the 3rd year after I joined. So, Mayur, whenever I give you these beautiful chances of interviews, and when you can, he would occasionally call me inside with another devotee, and we would press his feet for half an hour, 1 hour. And he says, whenever I give you these chances, I want you to go alone, sit down, and ruminate over it. Go on thinking about manan karo, chintan karo. And he says, merge ho sakta hai ra. You can merge into me. And I would say, yes, Swami, I'll definitely do it. The next week, 1 week I would do that, and then again, back to the routine. And Swami would call and said, hey, Swami ji ka agya ka palan karta hai. Are you listening to obeying Swami's instructions? And Swami said, I said, Swami, try karta hai. Nay, if you try, it will become dry. You must do it. There's no compromise. Try karna, dry ho sakta hai. You must do it. And with very serious sinai. So, that thinking, evidently I have not merged. So I didn't listen to Swami. But Swami has his own beautiful way of doing it, where he creates situations where he make you remember it. And so it happened that even in those 10 years, I didn't have to remember Swami because I'm seeing him morning, evening. But when I came away, then the first thing that started right in California was that devotees said, okay, you were from Swami's student, you have been in those years, talk, give us some talk. And I started sharing experiences, and then I realized, my God, it's so thrilling. And as you share the experience, you relive it. And recently, I read in a quantum physics documentary, actually, I saw this. They did some experiments on the brain. You would be able to verify this. They did experiments where they said that they asked somebody to visualize a beautiful picture, and they saw that some parts of the brain lit up, and then they asked the person to the first time to see the picture and the second time to visualize it, and again both times that place lit up. So in a way, I'm thinking, even if I've seen Swami's picture and I'm imagining it and I'm ruminating it over it and just going into that fantasy, the thrill is exactly the same as if I was there. And so maybe this is what Swami meant by saying that, go on thinking about it, go on ruminating. There's also another book that has become very famous, The Secret. And The Secret is based on another book called Ask and It Is Given, or The Law of Attraction by Jerry Hicks. They're a husband-wife couple. And what they have come up with this theory, and they've proved that whatever you give attention to gains power, manifests in your life. And I'm thinking, okay, then in that case, the more you think of Swami all the time, that you manifest Swami into your own life. Perhaps that is how the people, the devotees in the past who yearned for the form that they loved could have the vision, because the power of the mind just manifests it there. So this is one of the main reasons why I say think of Sai all the time is something which is important for me. Of course, one of the first incidents when Swami showed his omnipresence to me, it was my very first year of our joining the college, and Swami had picked a few of us to sleep in the mandir for security purpose. And during that night, I was talking to Professor Nanjindaya. He used to also come from Bangalore to teach accounts, and he would sleep in the mandir according to Bhagwan's instructions. I was reading Man of Miracles, and I saw Raja Reddy's fantastic chances from Swami. And I said, sir, Raja Reddy was so close to Swami, and now suddenly he must have thought that he would be with Swami forever. And now he's no more, and the whole new group of students are close to Swami. Does that mean that in future we'll be also gone and somebody else will be here? And he said, oh, it's likely. And so we ended the discussion there. The next morning, or that very week, Bhagwan was taking pictures with the students. And there were 300 of us all around Swami like this, and Swami standing right there as he was standing, and the students were coming in, doing their turns, taking a picture. And suddenly, in the middle of all that, Swami looks over his left shoulder, which means I was lost, I could have been anywhere. But Swami looked over his left shoulder and said, hey Mayur, come here. He says, see, students are coming, students are going. Swami is the same. And nobody knew it, but it struck me, oh gosh, that means whatever I was saying in the previous night or the night before, Swami's actually heard it, and he's giving me the answer for that. So then, of course, you get scared because Swami is everything that's going on in your head, right? This is the Nagar Sankirtan Darshan in the morning. It was again at a time when Frank Baranowski had just come, that very year. As you know, Frank Baranowski his invented Kirlian photography, and also he was born with this power to see auras of people. And he had given a wonderful talk about auras, and he had said that when he sees Swami and somebody's taking namaskar, he could see a surge of light going into that devotee, and Swami's auras would go, he could see all the way to the horizon. So, and when we stood like this here, it was an amazing darshan. You cannot explain it. Just an amazing darshan. And all of us stand there early morning, 5:30. We would get up, go through the whole village, Beltur village, Kadugori village, and all of us wrapped in blankets because it's very cold in Bangalore. And then finally we would approach the mandir here, and devotees from different villages would come. So it's like streams of devotees pouring in, And we would stand there, and Bhagwan would wait for the whole bhajan to get over, whole arti. Unlike Prashantilayam where the arti, Swami just takes the initial part and go away. Here Swami would wait for the whole arti to get over. Then he would raise his hands, abhayas, bless everybody. And then when he walks away, all of us are just glued. And as he's walking down the balcony, all of us are walking. Pots are breaking, and people are falling over each other. Nobody really cares. And Swami walks, the balcony runs all three sides. So as he's walking, everybody's also walking. And finally, this is the small little platform where Swami stands, and he looks down at us. And then if you see the front of the mandir, then there was this beautiful Krishna, and then there was a cage behind it, that's the zoo. And Swami had a beautiful zoo with lots of deer and peacocks and geese and rabbits and so many of the animals, and the students got a chance to look after the zoo. And if you go behind the Krishna and look, this is Vrindavan, and Swami's bedroom is there, right up there. And again, this is an unimaginable time that very few people can even think of now. In Vrindavan, we got darshan from morning 6 o'clock all the way to 7 p.m. You just had to be at the right time and know the routine. And we would continuously get darshan throughout the day. And so 6 o'clock moment Suprabhatam was over, we would rush and stand in this small little alleyway and around the Krishna, waiting for Bhagwan's glimpse. And that is a real meditation, because when you look at the mandir, that window, Swami could just open the curtain and drop it. So you can't blink, you can't scratch, you can't do anything. You have to continuously watch that to get that darshan, you know. And sometimes Swami would just open and there's a sun coming on the window, so you would only see Swami's robe, not his hair, black hair and everything. You wouldn't see, just see Swami's robe. So we would do that. And then when Swami drops the curtain, he's going to the other side of the mandir. So all 30, 40, 50 people running over the bushes, like, you know, hurdle race. We run and go to the other side. And Swami would give darshan there. But sometimes the Krishna in Swami comes out. So he wants to play some pranks on us, right? So he would drop the curtain and all of us run to the other side. And then we reach there, Swami's not come out. We look at some two wise guys amongst us who are still hanging around there. And they're doing this. So we rush back here to find that Swami had given darshan on this window again. And by the time we reach here, he is run and he's gone to the other side. So it's pandemonium in the morning, you know, just pandemonium total. And this is the window on the side. And Bhagwan comes in there, and then he'll hold the curtain up like this. Sometimes and say, horses, horses. He'll call all of us because he's made us run around. Sometimes he would rub his nose against that grill. Occasionally he would pick one, hey, too much talk. Where am I? And he would scold that person from top. So anything you can expect from that window, right? But that darshan is very, very precious. And again, he would give the same darshan coming back from his dining hall. This is also another very precious thing. The portico close up. The window on the left is the window where Swami had given me that original darshan. And the middle one is Swami's bedroom. I remember one occasion when he showed his omnipresence where I was walking past this portico. You see what, we were not allowed to go out of the premises and without permission. So I had to go only once, and that is to the post office to pick up some mail. And I looked around, none of the teachers were there, so I thought I found a loophole in the law. I'll take the permission after I come back. After all, it's a routine thing, right? So I walked by, and as I reached the end of the steps there, I reached there and I looked up, and what's in the balcony, Swami is standing there. And he's doing this. With his eyes big, and he was just pointing his finger out at me. And I froze in terror because I was caught. So I stood up, I looked at Bhagwan like this, then he smiled and he did this. All that stress and that fear drained out, and I made a beeline back to the hostel. I said, no breaking the rule, I got caught. So this is how Swami would show his omnipresence so many times. And lots of such things happen in the portico. This is Bhagwan standing in the car, on the car footboard. And I remember the first time when I joined the hostel, and for 3 weeks Swami had not come to Vrindavan yet. He was in Puttaparthi. And then one day I had finished my bath and I was getting ready, and suddenly the whole hostel shook like an earthquake. I was really scared, panicked because of thinking it's an earthquake. And I look out of the window and there's students just pouring out of their rooms, going down the 3 flights of steps and running like crazy. Not knowing what to do, I also ran. And I ran and reached the door, only to find out that my room leader is telling me, hey, you're not fully dressed, go back. I ran back, dressed, and came out, and the Swami's car, they had heard the horn. Everybody's programmed, the old students are programmed that the Mercedes-Benz, there's a particular horn, the sound of a horn, and they heard that, and so they all followed. And when Swami reached the portico, we surrounded the car, and Swami got off and said, happy, very happy to see all of you, the new students. This was also the typical way that Swami waved at when he was leaving Vrindavan to go to Puttaparthi. This is again the portico in the beginning where after in the morning and in the afternoon Swami would come down from his bedroom and living quarters upstairs, and he would first stand here, and as he's standing there he would joke and sometimes scold, and a lot of things happen there. That rangoli was done by all the flower rangoli by the sevadal, so sevadal would die to wait for Swami to step on it, and that was their mark of being blessed by Swami. Swami would stand there, take letters from students, and one day he picked two old devotees. There is this Mr. Java who owned the Joy Ice Cream factory in Whitefield, and that time Joy Ice Cream was a big thing. He was a very stout man, and he was standing there, and Swami said, "Hey Java, these boys are saying you're a pisnari, you're a miser person." So Swami, what did I do? He's scared. No, they're saying you got a big factory with ice cream, you're not giving them any ice cream. Swami, I'll send 400 ice cream today. So the next to him there's another devotee. His name is Mr. S.N. Singh. And Mr. S.N. Singh's feature is what? That he has a safari stitched. And he's got different colored safaris, but he only wears safari suits. Same cloth, same pant, shirt. But one more cherry on the ice cream is that he's got a Nehru cap of the same cloth also. So he always wears the topi and he comes. So Swami would always joke with him and say, "Hey, kitne jan ko topi pehnaya? How many people did you con?" You know, that's an expression in Hindi. And as he joked, Swami told him, "See, I think my boys are saying, boys have not said anything, we're just standing. My boys are saying that with sweet there should be some khara item, so some salty item. So Swami, I'll bring 400 samosas today." So Swami is preparing the background. And the beauty is that, like a mother, he can walk into the hostel at any time, but he creates the hints where we have to invite him to the hostel. So this is all the background that he has created, where now the game plan is brewing in the students. So Swami wants to come to the hostel, so we have to go and invite him to the hostel. That's a very beautiful, sweet thing. And the story continues a little later. Of course, he would also give instructions to the warden and others are standing there. This picture, Swami has a small little green flower. So in early morning when we get up, the first students would run to the mandir area, and there were lots of creepers. And in the creepers there were these very fragrant green flowers. And only a few grew at a time, so whoever got it, got it. And we would stand there to give this flower to Swami when he came to the portico, and Swami would take it, play with it, smell it, sometimes throw it back to the student. And that was an interaction that was very, very important for us. There he's doing this. It's a very beautiful, informal thing. It is like, I can't. This is the interview room. And Swami again here would come out from the interview room and go outside to the shed, give darshan, and then bring a whole team of devotees in. If you enter that interview room, this is the first main interview hall. I remember in 1978, I mentioned to you that Swami went away with a few students to Mudumalai forest for Shivratri. 1979 Shivratri was coming and everybody was in full anticipation. Swami is going to take some lucky guys again. So a few weeks before, actually 2 weeks before, I was standing in the darshan inside, and suddenly one of the students who works upstairs, he tapped me on the shoulder and said, "Come here, come here." He took me far and said, "Swami said, don't go to college today." Wow. Swami is saying, don't go to college today. This is a dream thing. So I hid behind the trees, and suddenly Swami comes out and tells all the students, no, college Pondi, come on, everybody go to college. And he sends them off way before they need to go actually, but all are cleared out. After they all gone, then I realize another student hiding behind another tree. So I know that both of us have been told to wait. Anyway, Swami went out for darshan, and on the way back he brought a big group of devotees. One of them was Shirdi Amma. Shirdi Amma is Pedabotu. If you've seen the book, The Life of Pedabotu, this Shirdi Amma has been fortunate to be with Shirdi Baba and Sathya Sai Baba. And so she was wheeled in. There were lots of other devotees, and we entered this place, and I was sitting on the side where the handkerchiefs are. On that side, the other student was sitting on this side of Swami. We were both pressing Swami's feet. All the other devotees were around, and Pedabotu was on this side against the wall. And as usual, when the door closes, Swami says, "Kya samachar?" He'll be relaxed, he'll sit down. And then Pedda Bottu started off, Ma Devudu, Ma Krishnudu, Ma Ramudu. She is that old lady who's got a big bindi here. And she treats Swami as a child, her child. So she is endearingly talking to Swami like that. And Swami is telling us, she's a widow, but she wants to get married again. That's why she's putting that big thing here, So let's find a husband for her, Swami is joking that way. Then Swami started discoursing and asking questions, and spiritual questions. As Swami was asking spiritual questions, he pointed all the questions to me. And as he asked me one question, invariably all the answers were wrong. So every time he asked a question, I said the wrong answer, Swami would tap me like this. Jutra, like this. And he would touch me. And this went on for 3, 4, 5 times, till a point came where an old devotee lady in the back said, Swami, 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 beat me also like that, Swami. Swami said, Tumhara husband mere ko marega. Your husband will beat me. So Swami was joking that way. So after all this happened, Swami started his personal interviews and he took the devotees in one by one. Moment the first devotee went in and the door closed, this Pedda Bottu called all of us like a conspiracy theory. I want to tell you something before he comes out, So he's calling us close by and says, in Shirdi Baba's time, if he got angry, he would take a stone and he would throw at his devotees, and it's recorded there. But this Baba, you be careful. He smiles outside, he throws stones inside. Meaning he tests the devotees inside. And this was something which I could not forget, because this is a perspective of a devotee who has seen both the avatars, and how beautifully she summed up the approach of the two avatars. So she said that, and of course it was my turn to go in, and Swami blessed me, created Vibhuti, and said, you know what, you're very fortunate, I'm going to take you to Mutumalai on Shivratri. But don't tell anybody. I said, that's very difficult. Because they have just seen me going to the interview room, it's 2 weeks to Shivratri. How am I going to hide that? So I'm putting on a straight face after the interview is over. Putting on a straight face, pretending not to tell anybody, not to be excited. I'm not supposed to pack my bag till the last minute because we are 11 people in a room. Even if I put 2 clothes in a bag, they will know. So how do we do that? Anyway, sat there and I said 2:30 in the morning I'll get up and I'll get ready. We were supposed to leave by 3:30 in the morning. So I got up in the morning, and only to find that I'm the last person in the room to get up. Everybody's already gone for darshan. They knew it somehow. Through the thing, and we went in 2 cars, and I'll tell you the whole story. We got more pictures of that trip. As we go into the private interview room where Swami gives darshan, this is where I had the good fortune of sitting with Swami. Swami would call another devotee and me, and then I would sit down. And of course, other students also got these chances. Sit down and do Patseva while Swami is talking business with that devotee. So this happened, and one day, not in my presence, but that round table, there one devotee was taking namaskaram and it broke. The glass broke. So he was very apologetic, and he said, Swami, I'll replace it. Swami said, don't worry, I'll arrange for it. And he asked some other devotee to look after that. Then there's a room right across from that. It's called the safe room. The reason why it's a safe room is because diagonally opposite to this couch on the left is a huge metal safe which could not have been put into the room unless the house was built over it. Means it couldn't have gone through any door. So that's why we called it a safe room. But this is the room where Bhagavan would come down. He would give quick darshan outside to the students and then come and sit in this table. And even after the main darshan, he would sit there and read letters, talk to the warden, talk to the principal, and conduct all the business here. Very few students were allowed, and I had the good fortune of being there. So we would stand in like a horseshoe around Swami, and wonderful, wonderful memories. I remember that devotee who got the table repaired was standing near that black stand with a pot on it, right next to Swami. And so Swami came back from darshan, took a huge tray of letters, he put it next to him, and actually in his lap, and he said, so how much did you spend for the repair of the table, the glass? And that devotee said, Swami, no, nothing. He said, hey, Chapu, tell me. So he said, Swami, 1,000 rupees. So Swami went through that 200 letters like this with 2 fingers. And he picked one letter up, which was sealed, opened it, and exactly 1,000 rupees in that. Swami gave it. And he hinted later on that, see, you people think that, somebody must be in the room, must be thinking whether Swami reads those or not. So Swami proved that Even as you think a thought, I already know it, but I take these letters just for your satisfaction. But I know everything in what are those letters. And like the anecdotes, there are so many. There is another beautiful incident here that happened. We were standing around and Swami was giving a beautiful discourse, and suddenly one very frail looking student, he must have not had his idli sambar in the morning, he just passed out right there on the floor. And so suddenly Swami got up and he went to this boy and he touched his hand. And like, the doctors give the defibrillator, whatever it's called, the guy suddenly got up and Swami said, see, divine power. All of us were like, this guy was absolute limp on the floor and now he's suddenly all Joshi has come up on standing. Then Swami always shows his divinity and then covers it up with Maya. So he sat down on the chair and said, so what was the last sentence I said before all this happened? And all of us are scratching our head and he's sort of made light work of this whole incident that happened. Many, many such incidents. One more is where Swami asked the students, he asked the old warden. At that time the warden was, I won't say his name because I don't have his permission. The warden was told that when you come down to this room, you should complain against the senior students and say that they are not following the example, they are leading a bad example. But don't say I said it. Swami is telling this to the students, that warden. The warden knows very well not to question Swami. He said, okay. But he was wondering, Swami, how will I know when to say it? Swami said, I'll tell you. Then this warden is even more confused. Now here is this room, such a small room, all the old students are going to be there. I am going to be there, Swami is there, and Swami is going to tell me to complain against them, but Swami should not be involved. So it's that person has stopped thinking. He said, okay, I'm not going to think no more. Anyway, he stood there and the time came when he was supposed to complain. And Swami looks at him and does this, like this. So before he starts complaining, this person, the warden, looks around the room and he finds every single student in the room looking at his toes. Nobody's looking up. And then he gets the shock of his life. It means Swami is in each of them. He made every single student look down, and then Swami did this so that they did not notice that Swami is initiating them. This is our side. If today we get up from this room and walk out, it's not you, it's Swami making you do it. We are just like remote control, take you out. So that's our Swami. The most cherishable moment of this room is when one devotee came inside and he got a big steel box of cashews and almonds and he offered to Swami. It's very lots of love. Swami is sitting on the chair, so imagine, okay, Swami is sitting on the couch and that person offers things. Swami looks inside like this, too fattening, I can't have it. Then he turned around and he told that man, ye Gujarati ko diyo, and he pointed to me. I'm shocked. There's so many people. Why did I get singled out? Ye Gujarati ko diyo. Give it to this Gujarati. So as no reaction from me or that kind of a reaction, then Swami took one almond from that and then he bit it half and he says, Mayur, take. And when he offered that, I was even more stunned and he said, oh, because I put it in my mouth, you don't want to have it? I said, no, Swami. Grabbed it and I put it in my mouth. And that is Swami's very unique way of saying, you're part of me. It's a very beautiful moment. Of course, almonds have played a very big thing. I had a low BP. I wrote a letter to Swami saying, Swami, headache from 2-3 weeks. Oh, really? Okay, so after the darshan got over and everything, he took me by his hand all the way to his kitchen, asked the cook to give a whole packet of almonds. He gave it to me and said, soak 4 at night, in the morning have it. Your low BP will be fixed. So that much effort and that much love he shows. This is the outside room, just outside that safe room, where Swami would sit for evening bhajan. And imagine, this is such a small, thin foyer. 385 cannot fit. So students plus guests plus all the big wigs, everybody. So what we would do is that moment the college bell rings at 3 o'clock, many of the students would sprint, like in an Olympics race, would sprint down right from the college to this place because the first batch of students who put the books there, books was a marker. We put the books there, notebooks there, that means when Swami calls, those people will go first. And when those students go first, they get to sit right next to Swami's chair. And when they get to sit next to Swami's chair, throughout the bhajan, do Path Seva. And that was something very, very precious. So, this is a very poor picture, but it's also the picture of bhajan in session where Swami is sitting and all of us are cramped there. And I remember at times when Swami would ask the students to sing Sai Katha, Rama Katha, and so many different beautiful programs. Sometimes he would sing and he would play the talam. There, he's playing this. I was brand new and I had a small little 110 Instamatic. And I just stuck it into Swami's face and I clicked that flash, it went like this. And the student said, you got away lightly, you're not supposed to take a picture of Swami right that close. But this is the one that where Swami was totally lost in that. I remember this picture, why? Because Swami has told us so many things that, you students, you're the greatest tyagis, the greatest renunciates. So we are all feeling like, wow, we must be really, And then Swami said, see, when I close my eyes and I go into bliss, I leave everything behind. That is your birthright. And you have given that up. So you are the greatest tyagi. You can get the same bliss and that you have given up. So you are the greatest renunciates. Amazing. This is then be calm. Okay? Because I was panting. So be calm first, then be calm. Okay? And then said, Chudu, after your studies is all over, now you go back to Bombay, look after parents, do your duty, look after the parents, serve them, and then do MRS and all that. I was wondering, what's that degree, Mrs. Ra, get married, Mrs. I thought he was talking about some career degree after BCom and supposed to. He's talking about Mrs. The moment he said that, I started crying. Because once I went to Mumbai and after that I have not gone all the years. So when he's asking me to leave, that was a touchy subject. The moment I started crying, there was Dr. Benito Reyes from Ohio University, California, sitting there. And he said, so Ray, why is he crying? Swami did something very bad, that's why he's crying. He says, no. He cannot imagine leaving Swami's presence and going away, that's why he's crying. And then Swami took that handkerchief and he gave it to me, called me close, he gave me the handkerchief, wipe your tears. And then he said, Tamasha ra, itna Swami ko nahi samjha. You did not understand, I'm just joking. He was feeling bad that he made me cry, And that was something very, very touching. So I still have that handkerchief with me where Swami had given it. After that, he never raised that topic about going away. That was a touchy subject. Okay, this is that small little stairwell in which you go up to Swami's bedroom. So now I'm going to rewind back to that incident where we have hatched the strategy to invite Swami to the hostel. So what we did, some of us, we would go to this stairwell and sort of sit there because we can't see Swami. He's around the corner and we can't fit in the room. But this is from where Swami would go up. So we all sort of like sardines packed in that place. And Aarti is over and Swami is slowly walking to go upstairs. And this is the view looking up. And you see that whole railing or banister, whatever you call it, that place, all the students, what we would do is we would put our hands next to each other, one next to it. So that when Swami climbs, he has to touch somebody's hand. There's no other empty spot on that, right? And sometimes you would touch every single hand and go up. So this time we are all waiting for Swami to go up. And then Swami, moment he enters, we start, Swami, dinner, Swami, dinner, Swami, dinner. And it's a cacophony because it's a small stairwell and all of us are raising our voice fully. And there's Swami saying, hey, no musko, keep quiet. He's saying that way. And as he says that, look at the small smile in the face. There's a little smirk. So we know that he really doesn't mean it, And so we raise the thing, volume even higher. The next thing he does is puts his hands in the ears. And then finally he knows that we are not going to listen. So he puts his head and says, I'll come. And then when he comes, of course, it's fantastic because besides the ice cream and this thing, there's a lot more stuff that he has sent. This is Swami's divan or sofa upstairs. And when he's upstairs, right, sitting down. When he's sitting there, he's usually writing the Vahinis and all the other things, or sometimes playing a very human role by even reading a newspaper. So he's sitting there, and I remember that cushion, the green cushion there. What happened was that I was one of the students sleeping in the mandir, and the place where I slept was If I look up at the ceiling, that's Swami's bedroom. And I used to tell myself, oh, just the ceiling, the Swami's up there and I'm here, how close can you get? And that was something very thrilling. But next to us in the room, there was Mr. Rama Brahmam, who was the caretaker of the mandir, and you read his story in Satyam Shivam Sundaram, part 5 or 6, I think. Now, Mr. Ram Brahmam had a very severe prostrate problem, so he was living in the next room, and he was in great pain, and he used to moan at night, so I'm sleeping there, and he's in the next room, almost crying. And this thought and going through my head, I said, Swami, you are going all the way to America to save devotees, and this person, poor devotee, is right underneath in the same house, and you are not even doing anything for him. And I felt really bad for him. And of course, I slept that night. And next day, or again the day after, I don't know, suddenly one of the students calls me, who was working upstairs. We call him staircase duty boys. So that student calls me and he says, Swami is calling you upstairs. So I reach and Swami is sitting right there. And I kneel down next to Swami. And Swami says, Chudu, Ram Brahman has to go to Bangalore for a checkup. I want you to go with him. No, it doesn't strike me why I am picked when there are so many senior students and so many other devotees. But at that moment, I'm saying, wow, I'm getting to go run an errand for Swami. That's great. So I went with Mr. Rama Brahman. On the way, exactly, Swami is a perfectionist. He would give me instructions, and as I was, yes, Swami, and I would run. Swami said, come back. Repeat what I told you. Because 90% of the students, when Swami sends out for a message, by the time they reach the spot, they've forgotten what it is. Because they are so flabbergasted, Swami has given the message, right? So Swami knows that he calls back. What is the message? Repeat it. After I repeat everything perfectly, now go. So when we went and then the examination was done, we came back. It was pretty late. Usually Swami goes into the bedroom by evening 7:30. It was well past that. And as I reached, the student saying, oh no, Swami is waiting for you, come. And so I rushed up there. And Swami is sitting there and all the warden and everybody is standing around Swami. And I kneeled down and Swami asked me every single detail, like one of those war briefings. We have to debrief everything, so all that I explained to Swami. And then Swami says, take namaskar now. So I bent down, and as my hands are going down to Swami's feet, in a very deft movement, Swami picks up his feet. So my hands, instead of landing on Swami's feet, they land on the cushion. And then Swami quickly puts his feet on my hands. So when you're taking namaskar, your hands are supposed to be on Swami's feet. They are right now underneath Swami's feet. And the rope falls on the hands. So all the people behind can see what's happening. And as I'm there, Swami is going on pressing his feet on that cushion like this. My hands are underneath. And I'm there I can't get up. I'm stuck there, I can't get up. And Swami waits for some time and then says, hey warden, ye so gaya, he's gone to sleep. Wake him up. And I can't react, nothing else. Then they also don't know how to react. Finally Swami slips his feet out and I get up and he blesses me and I go. And when the whole mandir was broken down, Bhagwan let us take mementos, and that green cushion is with me in Vancouver. So every time I touch that, that's a nice, wonderful memory for me. This is Swami's Goldie, love for animals. I have special respect for this dog because he bit me. He seemed to own Swami because when Swami is there, and he would sit in Swami's lap or on Swami's feet. Anybody went close by, it just showed the teeth, Nobody could go near. But must have been some great soul because Swami would feed him from his own plate. Sitting at Swami's. There are other pictures. I purposely put it there because I just wanted to show you that Swami doesn't wear a robe at night. Some devotee stitched it and gave it offered. Swami wore it, took a picture and gave it back. But this is our Bhagwan, who's very human but at the same time shows his divinity in the middle. But there is some sweetness that is not human. There's something that is divine. It leaves you very, very fuzzy inside. See, there's a perfectionist. I believe, I'm not sure, he had a weighing scale under his bed and he was very conscious of what he weighed. This was also, birthdays was a big thing. I remember my second year when I was a birthday, I wrote a letter to Swami, and Swami was coming back from the darshan. And he says, hey, birthday, and he did this, and nothing came out. The next time he did that, a plum came out. So I ate the plum and I have the seed, and it was in State Bank of India locker for about 10 years, and now it's with me in Vancouver. A lot of people said, plant it and grow a tree. I said, can you imagine if I had done that? I wouldn't be allowed to take agricultural products across the border. It would be stuck in India. But I have the seed with me still. The Swami would always travel with us in the bus after, when Dasara is over, many students would leave for vacation. And after they've gone for vacations, few students that are left would travel with Swami. So Swami's car is in the front and there's a bus in the back. And Swami, halfway somewhere, he would get off the car and come into the bus. And then the car would go ahead and Swami sitting in the bus. I remember I had a sleeping bag I had put on the chair. And Swami sat and he was joking and fooling around, singing bhajans and all. And not the trip in which I was, but in a previous trip, Swami mentioned that, see, the car in the front, the devotees are worshipping the car because it was associated with me, though Swami was not in the car. So all the devotees on the road are bowing down to the car. And then Swami would say, I came with you and now nobody's bowing to me. So that's how Swami would... This is Swami sitting down and eating pan, betel leaf. And as you all know, when Swami was a child, he was going to school, Mother Ishwaramma would tie the ragi, which is like a rice substitute, and she would wrap it in a pan, a betel leaf. And Swami would not only eat the ragi, but eat the betel leaf. And that's how he got the so-called habit of eating pan. So we had the privilege of preparing the pan box every day. So we would cut the leaves exactly in the right shape. And then we opened the cardamom, put it in the second one. The third one had the lime, the pink colored lime, which has to be a particular brand, all that. So we prepared that box every day. And Swami would eat out of it. In the evening, that was our prasadam, because we would eat the rest of it and then prepare new stuff. So Swami said betel leaf is good for digestion, lime is good for calcium, and that way he would explain. One day in Trey Vrindavan, suddenly Swami said, I don't eat pan anymore. He stopped. So we were wondering what happened. 40 years Swami's been having it and now he suddenly stopped. And later on Swami gave the explanation himself. He says that he was giving an interview to a Karnataka minister. And that minister had the habit of inhaling snuff. And he had that dirty handkerchief which he kept blowing into. So Swami said, what a bad habit you've got. Why don't you give it up? He said, Swami apologized and he stopped doing it. Swami said, after he left, I wiped my mouth and I saw that my handkerchief, white handkerchief, had pan, red color mark on it. He said, how can I tell him when I am not doing it myself? So I gave it up. He says, I didn't have a habit ever. If you have a habit, you can't just give it up like that. So Swami stopped eating pan from that day onwards. This is Swami giving a discourse on Krishna Janmashtami. And Swami was talking about Krishna and he said, a lot of these artists, they think that Krishna wore a crown with jewels and all that. Nothing. He was a very simple cow. He was a king maker. He was not a king. King maker is greater than the king. So he said he only wore a turban and he told one student, go get a towel. So the student ran and then Swami took that towel and wrapped it around his head and said, see, this is how he put a turban, tied the turban, and he would just put a peacock feather. That's how Krishna did. Then of course he went on to create the Kaustuba Mani that Krishna used to wear in the neck. I think this is the one. Yes, this is the Kaustuba Mani. It's pretty large. And then this is on Ramanavami when Swami was giving a discourse about Rama and said at Rama's time the human beings were 15 feet tall. And they had long hands, and then he created a ring which was Sumantara's ring. That is Dasharatha's minister's ring. So he put it and it was pretty big. This huge ring there. This is a Cadillac that some devotee was trying to give to Swami. Unfortunately, the Cadillac's karma would have not been there because from left-hand drive to right-hand drive they made it, but they forgot to transfer the computer chip. So from day one it was giving problems. But when it came the first day, Swami, in his great magnanimity, but he sometimes becomes a child. So he would stand there and he called all the doctors from the Whitefield Hospital and said, see, anta automatic, everything is automatic in this. And he would touch the window pane, the glass, and the glass would go up, see, down, 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 And then he would press the other antenna, and the antenna is going up, antenna is going up. And he would play that thing, and the next minute he is detached. He didn't care about it. In fact, the repairs were going on so much, I sat in this car more than Swami. Because every time the driver fixes it, I have to go for a test run, right? So that's how... Of course, Swami's zoo was also a wonderful time. For about a year and a half, I got a chance to look after the zoo. And invariably when Swami would come in, we get a chance to offer the apple to Swami. And I had a chance to share this on 1st January 2008 in Prashant. And Swami was really emotional about it. He felt moved. What happened was the cage is in such a way that once we students and Swami enters, we close the gate, and all the other students are outside. So from our perspective, we are not sure who's inside the cage and who's outside, because those students look like they are in the cage, right? They're from that side. So Swami came in and he took, "Dear, dear," Swami shouted like this. And all that whole herd came running to Swami. And Swami took an apple and did this. And then the next minute, before they reached Swami, Swami took the apple and went to the students. "Dear, dear." This time he was punning on the word D-E-A-R and D-E-E-R. And then he said, "Chudura, these deer are coming to me, but these deer are not coming. The four-legged deer are coming to me, but the two-legged deer are not coming." And it was a profound statement, because the animals respond so spontaneously. And we have these hang-ups and we have these ego problems where we don't respond to Bhagwan's love, which is offering so much abundant measure. That's me offering the apple to Swami. And finally we take namaskar, and that red flask, actually it's just a jug. Swami would wash his hands in it, and then that was our tirtham. We would drink every time. And finally, Rajmata of Navanagar, she decided that this house was too old and too small for Swami. So she convinced Swami to get it broken down, and she said she wanted to build Trai Vrindavan. So this is Bhagwan coming out of the bedroom for the last time, and then all the Sevadal, means all the devotees, our professors and teachers and everybody took hammers and started breaking. And it was very sad to see that go, because this mandir was very, very intimate with Bhagwan. You know, you could have his darshan throughout the day. There is Swami. Then Swami moved temporarily to Trai Vrindavan, to this Rajmata's bungalow, which is between the mandir and the college. And again, I had a wonderful chance to be among the team of students who were inside with Swami. And this is the inside room. One quick story here. When this happened, I had already finished my BCom, and I was teaching for 1 year in Vrindavan. And that time there was a need for teachers in Puttaparthi. So Swami, knowing that if he asks me to leave Vrindavan, I'll start crying like last time. So he didn't want to ask. He sent Dr. Gokak, Professor Gokak, to ask me, the Vice Chancellor. As the Vice Chancellor came to this mandir and he said, "Mayur, will you come to Puttaparthi to teach?" I said, "No sir, I won't come unless Swami tells me." I mean, what audacity, telling the Vice Chancellor, "I won't listen to you, I won't listen to Swami." Usually you would get into trouble for that, but nothing happened. And it so happened that Bhagwan just came before Dasara to Rajmata's house, and it was only, Swami was sitting on the chair. To that side I was kneeling down next to Swami, and this side there was another devotee. And one other devotee from Bangalore had come with a huge suitcase. And he had in this suitcase, he had dhotis, saris and so many other things, which Bhagwan was purchasing to distribute in Narayan Seva during Dasara to the poor and the needy. So it was nice to watch Swami asking this devotee, "Look, this is the sari," and he would peek at the price. Actually, Swami is a ace sari shopper. He knows the pallu, design, color, matching, this, that, everything. He talks shop like this. So in that buying the sari, he was showing this other devotee, "So what is the price?" And she would say, "Oh Swami, 600 rupees. And Swami said, "No, only 400 rupees. And then Swami said, "I want, okay, 500 and 400. And he would buy those saris for distribution. After all that purchasing was over, dhotis were bought, saris were bought, and then the gentleman left, the other devotee left, and I was alone there with Swami trying to wrap things up. Suddenly Swami is taking a sari, and he's not looking at me in the eyes, okay? He's looking at the sari. He says, "Hey Mayur, will you go to Puttaparthi to teach?" So he's getting conscious, right? He doesn't want to look into the eye and ask me. So I said, "No Swami, I won't go." And I said, Swami, I'll lose your proximity, which I'm enjoying here. Then Swami said, thought enough was enough, so he put the sari down and said, let me tell you a story. So it's just me and Swami is telling me a story. He says, there was this young man who gave up all his possessions and everything and left his family, friends, everybody in the city, went into the Himalayas. And as he went into the Himalayas, he sat down on a rock and started meditating. And his only routine was to go to the river, have bath, go and sit on the rock, meditate. If somebody gave food, he would eat. This happened for many, many years, till one day this sannyasi went to the river, had bath. When he came back to the rock, there was another sannyasi sitting on that rock. So right away he went up and said, hey, get off, this is my rock. So that sannyasi got off and he said, I'll go. And I just want to point out to you that you've given up all your possessions, everything, and got attached to this rock. Right? And Swami said, no kudo atla, you also like that. You left your parents and your brothers and everybody in Mumbai, and now you got attached to this rock called Vrindavan. So which is better? Swami asked. Puttaparthi is better or Vrindavan better? Again, tunna pota hai. He said, Swami, Vrindavan is better. Swami said, wrong answer. The right place is wherever Swami is. He says, in a minute I can make Vrindavan into Puttaparthi, Puttaparthi into Vrindavan, and that's entirely my wish. And he actually did it. Within, I think, around the 60th birthday, for 1.5 years, he did not come to Bangalore, to Vrindavan at all. The Kadugodi economy went down. Alembic Glass Colony, if anybody knows, that closed down. The pre-university program closed down in the college. Students did not want to take courses that were offered in Vrindavan. They only wanted to take courses which were in Puttaparthi because Swami didn't go for 1.5 years there. So literally what Swami says actually took place. And many other programs. There's Swami giving darshan from his bedroom, peeping and giving darshan. Then when finally Swami moved to Trai Vrindavan, again it was a wonderful time, where I had the chance to set up the bedrooms along with the other students, and for almost a year, half a year actually, we were there upstairs. And I forgot to mention, in the other house, I got a chance to serve Swami on the table, dining table when I was eating. And that's where I learned the hard way that what a typical Telugu cuisine should run. So everybody was, another person was serving and I started serving, and Swami said, no, not that. First it is roti or chapati, tortilla and curry or upu they call it, thick dal. And once that is over, then pappu, not uppu, sorry. I remember Swami calling somebody uppu lainu pappu. Okay, anyway. So it was that dal, and then after that it is roti and curry, then rice and sambar, rice and rasam, rice and yogurt. And you can't go reverse. When the rasam is served, you can't serve sambar after that. I had no clue. And not only that, I had the rice thing in the hand. I took the small little spoon and stuck it in the middle. Swami said, hey, not like that. He took the spoon from my hand and he gently cut it from the side. He said, you should serve it like this. Not one grain of rice should fall outside. And despite showing that, when it came to yogurt, again I stuck it in the middle. He says, no, from the side, cut it and then give it. So this was again a beautiful, intimate experience where he taught this is how the sequence should go. It's nice to be a part of the inner household of Swami. So many times I would run and go across the corner and I would almost bump into Swami. That was also a scary thing. Another anecdote, sorry, I don't know if I'm going beyond time. No, I'm okay. Another incident in the Rajmata's house was, this is of course not, I'll come to this later. In Rajmata's house was, there's this bottle called Viva. It's a malt drink in India, Viva. So I liked it, I used to have it, and then one of the students who lived inside the mandir, he wanted one. So I brought that, and Swami, I was the only person in the mandir between the devotees and Swami. Like the Sevadal in the entrance, but nobody else in the whole mandir. And Swami was in his bedroom, so I thought I'd quickly run to the stores, buy that Viva bottle for this person, for the cook or somebody. And as I was running up the steps, Swami was standing there, I almost bumped into him. And he said, hey, where did you go? I said, Swami, I had to buy this Viva bottle for this person. So what is it? He said, a drink for strength and all that, good. Oh, I see, he took a look at it and everything. Much later, and this is unofficial, I came to know that Swami ordered cases of that for Sai Gita. Okay, this is Swami. When I was in Trai Vrindavan that time, one day Swami, the day the Trai Vrindavan was inaugurated, Bhagwan took a few of us from Rajmata's house to Trai Vrindavan in the car, and then the inauguration was done. And that evening Swami left for Guntur and for Mumbai trip. So the first evening, the 3 or 4 of us were selected that you guys go and sleep for security there. And Swami was to enter the mandir only after he returned from the trip. As we are waiting entrance and Swami had just come back, Swami gets down from the car and says, "Hey, Mayur, I went to Mumbai to your house. I saw all your rowdy pictures." And I'm getting the shock. I said, "What happened now? I didn't get any information from my parents, and here Swami is saying this." So right after Swami retired, I called Mumbai, and my parents said that Swami had actually agreed to come to our place in Kolaba. And in that building only there were 4 houses for 4 devotees. And Swami gave a beautiful experience to all 4 devotees. As he entered, in Mumbai, it's a strata organization, and you have a cooperative society where there is everything but cooperation. There's only operations, right? So there were fights happening in the annual general meetings, and police vans had to wait and all that kind of stuff. One new tenant came inside and said that there is this big banyan tree in the compound, and there is a Hanuman temple underneath. I don't know how he found out. Hanuman temple underneath, which was not worshipped, and that's why all these problems are happening. So the person sits between 2 cars somewhere there, and he does his puja for 40 days right there to propitiate this. Okay, that's one background. The other thing is that the building was built by a Muslim builder. His name was Mr. Porbandarwala. And he had all builders need bodyguards. So he had a bodyguard called Sher Khan. And that Sher Khan lived in the opposite building. He learns from my elder brother that Swami Sathya Sai Baba is coming. Sai Baba is coming to the building. So he takes his small little daughter, and he and both of them are standing in the balcony waiting for Swami. So the time comes where the car pulls up, and as the door opens, Swami gets off, and his feet land exactly on the spot where this person had worshipped for 40 days. So he is thrilled. He said, "Wow, my prayers have been answered. Baba's foot fell exactly on that same spot." So he was happy. And then as Swami got down, Sher Khan's small little daughter, whom he was carrying, she didn't know what was happening. She was just standing, waiting in father's arms. Her immediate reaction was, "Papa, Papa." I'll first say it in Hindi. "Samne wali building mein Allah aaye hain, Allah ke pair mein chappal nahi hai." Allah has come, and he does not have any footwear. And he is absolutely moved. He says, "This is my daughter's reaction." He runs down and he stands in a spot so that he could get closer darshan of Swami, but not knowing that he's standing in the opposite direction to a one-way street. So if Swami goes, Swami will turn right, and his guy is standing on the left. Anyway, so Swami goes up and he goes through all the 4 houses. My parents, I don't know what got into them, that they felt they had to show something of my past to Swami, and they showed all those pictures with Bruce Lee t-shirt, long hair, all that stuff. Immediately my stock market prices fell in divine hands. So this was it, and of course they had a wonderful time. And when Swami was leaving, he asked the driver to turn left against the traffic, and he gave darshan to Sher Khan, blessed him, and that guy was fida. That's how we call it. Of course, this was the trip when... How much time I got? 1 hour? Okay. This is a trip to Mudumalai forest. So I mentioned to you, Swami had told us that he would take us to Mudumalai forest. And 2:30 in the morning, we go in the car, and on the way, we had wonderful time. He like a mother, he's got the back part of the car filled with tiffin carriers. Bondas, idlis, vadas, everything, lot of food is there in it. And as the car started off, we were waiting for the second car to catch up. So he tells me, "Hey Mayur, so all the students asked you whether you're going with Swami or not. What did you say?" Because he had told not to tell. So I said, "No Swami," I said, "I'm not going." He said, No, never tell a lie. Say that you don't know." I said, "Swami, that's a lie too, right? I mean, I knew I'm going with Swami, and Swami is telling me, tell them that you don't know." Then Swami clarified, because it's true, I might change my mind. So I might not take you, so you're right. And so Swami says, never tell a lie, but always tell the truth. And this yukti, this intelligence, this what Swami calls general knowledge, common sense, he keeps telling that because he gives emphasis on these two. Anyway, we started, the car went through Bangalore in the middle of the night, 2:33, and then when we reached, on the way to the Mudumalai forest, which is on the way to Ooty, Swami was the tourist guide. He would say, oh, see, Bombay, that is Tipu Sultan's tomb, and that is Mysore Alagappan, where I gave him a locket and the honey is coming out. And he was like, showing us all the things. He started giving something to eat also. And then he said, everybody started singing songs. So as we were singing songs, suddenly he asked me, hey, sing a song. I'm not much of a singer, so I started a Gujarati song. I thought that if there is some Krishna's name or Nandalala name, I'll get away with it. So I said, Khamma Mara Nandaji Nalal. I sang that first line. At the end of it, I forgot. So I switched away to a marriage song. Mendi Tevavi. I jumped off into that. Hoping Swami didn't catch it. So anyways, he said, a Manchi tune. So that was the first time I sang. 10 years later, in 1989, Swami asked me in Kodaikanal, hey Mayur, sing a song. And then I started something, Anand. First line was, Chal. So that was my first and last time I ever sang, 10 years apart. So when brother was asking me, I said, I'm not a lead singer, I like to follow. Swami has already declared that. Swami stood on the way and took pictures with us, so many pictures. And we reached Karagudi Rest House, which is one bungalow in the middle of 100 square miles of forest. And as we sat down there, Swami got off the car. There were just 2 rooms. Swami and some senior students in one and 7 of us in the other room. And 4 meals a day with Swami, continuously discourses. And one Swami waved his hand and said, how many of you? 7, Swami. Waved 7 lockets. He gave all of us. Next time he said, he started creating food and other items there. And he started discoursing. The moment if the discourse finishes, then he would say, okay, let's go for a safari. And of course, he went out posing for pictures. And then we went for elephant safari. And so there were 3 elephants, Swami in the first elephant, I was in the second one, 4 per elephant. And through about 1.5 to 2 hours, we were in the forest, nobody talking, nothing, just the elephant in the front, Swami's elephant breaking a path in the forest, and he was sitting there constantly and praying, Swami, give me a vision of Shiva or something. But of course that didn't happen. And when we reached the Kargudi rest house back, Swami said, did you notice something? We were going through the forest looking for elephants, not knowing that we were sitting on one. He says, so also devotees look for God elsewhere when God is actually inside. So that was it. Swami on the other elephant. Then we went on the next day in a safari in a van. And in that van there is a hatch on the top that opens, and there is a forest ranger sticking his head out. And he looks around for wildlife and game, and if he sees anything he would tell Swami, then you would all. So there's a spot where he stopped, and there was a huge herd of wild elephants. And he points out, Swami, elephants. So Swami said, see. And Swami is telling all of us, see, that's the mother, that's the father, that's the mother-in-law. Just like Swami, right? Anti-climax. Tell a joke with a straight face. And then this was when the tire got stuck in the mud, and we were all pushing, and Swami seeing our plight. When we sat inside, Swami gave us oranges peeled himself to eat. So this is one of the pictures taken, and I very jokingly put a caption, why did I create this world? There's a song, right? Duniya banane wale. Okay. Of course, we went back around Shivratri. It was beautiful because in the evening Swami gave a discourse, and then he talked about the Amrit Manthan, the story about the gods and the goddesses churning, and how when the poison came, Shiva drank it, and then when Shiva fell down, then Parvati picked him up. And that's why Swami said in that Shiva Lingam, the base is Parvati and the Lingam is Shiva. And so he waved his hand and he created that. It had three heads, three faces actually, and with a snake hood on top. Then he created a watch for the Sevadal gentleman who was serving us. And then I had this small Instamatic camera and Swami is sitting there, and as I was taking a picture, suddenly Swami said, "Hey, film Munda, is there a film in it?" So I was taken aback, but I was wondering why Swami asked that question. So when I found out from one of the students, he said, during festivals in Purnachandra Auditorium, what happens is that the students have an enclosure to sit down, but all the photographers have an enclosure right in the front, close where they can take pictures. The warden or the seniors found out that more than half of those students had cameras but no film in it. They were sitting in front only so that they could go right in front, but they were pretending to take pictures. So they would get that special enclosure, you see. So Swami said, "Hey, film Munda, or you're just taking like that." So that's. After that, we went to Ooty, and as we were sitting in Ooty, by the way, the ankle socks were already in fashion then, okay? So Swami, we Ooty, and Swami sat there and he was joking, and then he said, "Hey, Mayur, I know when you were in Bombay, you were smoking. Side could petun atla just he's imitating me. And then, did you drink?" I said, "Yes, Swami, I drank." "What?" "Bloody Mary, vodka, whiskey." And as I was playing the names, Swami's eyes are becoming big, and there was this Subaraidu minister. He says, "Subaraidu Chudu, he has had everything." Rowdy, and then he was joking that way. So, those intimate moments with Swami. And then, in a particular spot where Swami was sitting like this, we were doing Pad Seva, and Swami mentioned that, "See, you guys are so lucky. Just behind in that window, if you look out, there were devotees sitting in a very hot sun for a very long time, just waiting for Swami's darshan. And inside there's all air conditioned, we are doing Pad Seva." Swami says, "You are so fortunate." Says, "In a minute, I can walk across the skies, and there will be police and soldiers all around to protect, and you will be nowhere. You'll be far away from me. So this is a beautiful chance that you have got. Look at those devotees sitting outside. They are not even getting that much. They have to wait so long in the hot sun to get Swami's darshan." Always trying to point out that we took Swami for granted. He would remind us again and again. Then of course he took us to Madras. I will mention later on that why he took us to Madras, but this was to Sundaram, and there were beautiful moments there. This is a Gindi temple where Leelamma, Swami created a beautiful yantram, means like a mystic emblem, and he put it under the Shirdi statue there. And Leelamma's family has got amazing stories. Lokanath Mudaliyar, if you heard of in Madras, who was there. There is a book, Baba Sathya Sai, and part 1 and 2, which was never published or sold inside, but it was sold outside. Original was in Swami in Tamil, translated into English. There are stories there which are not in any book recorded. Balapattavi Chettiar, Lokanath Mudaliyar, Leelamma, and there are so many others. If you read those, this is Leelamma, the daughter of Lokanath Mudaliyar, who spent her life as the priestess of this temple. And then there was this, I must also tell you about in Madras Music Academy. Swami went there to give a discourse to all the vice chancellors and professors of the southern India universities. And he took us there. And as we reached inside, it's amazing to see the reaction. There was a policeman on the junction with, how at that time they stand on a box, there's no signal. They have shorts which you can cut a tomato on it, it's starch, those things. That's the uniform. So they stand there. And he's doing this, and then suddenly he sees Swami's car. He drops everything and rushes to Swami. Swami says, "Get back onto your box. There's a major junction." And the traffic control guys jump off his box, right? To do Sairam to Swami. And then we reach the music academy. As we reach there, we are entered first, and we've taken our shoes off, and we are sitting very politely in the first row. Next to me, there's a professor who's wearing his shoes. His feet are up, very disrespectfully sitting there. And Swami comes in and he, as usual, radiant, he sits on the dais. And then when he starts his discourse, he starts in Pancham Shruti. Means really high-pitched Swami speaks. I've never heard Swami give a discourse like that. And one would think that if there are such erudite people, Swami should be saying something nice about them. No. He started off with saying that all the problems of the youth are because of you guys. He started with that, and whole discourse was just lambasting them. At the end of it, this person sitting next to me saying, "You got a paper? I want to write points." He put his foot down and he was busy taking down all notes of Swami's discourse. So you can see the transformation in this guy in a few seconds, right? Few minutes. Anyway, we went back to Sundaram, and as we were waiting outside, Swami came out of his bedroom, sat down, and he says, so how was my discourse? So everybody said, Swami, very powerful, very powerful. He says, yeah, I know. He says, I never prepare my talks. He says, moment I look into the audience's eyes, I know what my topic is. So the moment I saw those very proud professors and vice chancellors, I knew what I should give them. That's why I gave it to them. And so it was another nice revelation as to from Swami saying that ex tempo, he just looks into the eyes and he knows what it is. Of course, he took us to Kodaikanal. This is in 1989. And again, wonderful. This is Ram Navami. This Thursday is Ram Navami, correct? This Thursday. So, yeah, so this is Ram Navami also. Swami's just come out of the bedroom and we have given him cards that we had prepared. Then he would go in the bus with us. He had bought a Swaraj Mazda air-conditioned bus just for this occasion to take 23, 24 of us to Kodaikanal. He would be so casual, put on glasses and throughout. He didn't even bother to take them out and he was posing for picture after picture after picture. He took so many pictures with him. Each of the students, not just me, I'm just showing you what I have, but each of the students got so many pictures. And then the whole trip, we were there for 1 month. Unlike some of the later trips in Kodaikanal, which were 10 days, 15 days, we were there for a whole 1 month, 30 days. And in those 30 days, Swami would talk about Krishna's stories. So every day, how eight wives, all the 8 wives, how they got married to Krishna. And the story behind it. And as he was telling the story, he would create rings and these things to mark it. Like for example, the one on the left is about one of the wives whose father had lots of problems with some rogue bulls and all that, and he said, anybody who kills them, I'll give my daughter's hand in marriage. And Krishna and Balram obviously all fixed, divinely fixed game. Went and then he got the ring. So that's why Swami would create that. The very nice thing was that he talked about not very well known story about Balram and Revati's marriage. Balram is Krishna's elder brother and Revati's marriage. And Revati is from a place called Kushasthali. Now, nobody knew what that was, and I just happened to blurt out that I knew what it was. And Swami said, hey, how do you know? I said, Swami, I read it because Bharti Vidya Bhavan K.M. Munshi, he has written 5 books called Krishna Avatar 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. And in that, all those stories are there. My goodness, when Swami was telling these stories and he started creating, and he created a beautiful crystal swan, and with 108 diamonds around it. So big. And then he said, this is what Brahma gave Revati on her wedding. And it was a locket that Revati had to wear here. Can you imagine, so big, very beautiful, exquisite. We all saw it. Swami put it in on the table, put his handkerchief, and then all of us went out to take pictures, like those other pictures. We came back, everything, and then Swami gave that handkerchief and that whole thing to a student, hold it. After some time, Swami said, give it. He took, and then the handkerchief was empty. And that boy panicked. Swami said, hey, where did you give it? And Swami said, no, I dematerialized it. So. And then Swami wanted to take a group picture with us, and so he went down a very steep slope just to take that picture. And all of us had a chance to hold his hand and take him up the slope, and it's wonderful because this was the picture. He wanted that beautiful blue background of the Nilgiri hills. And again, here he's still wearing his cooling glasses. But the typical thing, everybody wants to be close to him. And then one day all of the students had to speak. And I was really scared to speak in front of Swami because I never had done it in all the 10 years that I was with Swami till then. And the first person when we land there, Swami says, okay, you speak. So he made it simple by telling us to talk about our PhD topic. After that was over. And the last day again, he asked me to speak and I got emotional and I started sobbing, and Swami waved his hand, created the ring, put it on my hand and said, life is green, see Swami in the ring. that's how we. And this is our PhD award ceremony in November 1988. And then the three of us, Sundarayar, myself and Hirok, we were the three people who were in the commerce department. Can you imagine what we owe, at least I owe to Swami, when free education, at a point where even the money that I was taking from my parents, he didn't allow, he would give me the money, pocket money. Clothes, everything given. Taken on trips outside. It's like total, you depend on Swami, don't depend on anybody else. That kind of thing. Give you the honor of doing a PhD degree, send you out for all the research work, get the PhD degree awarded in such a grand way, give you your job, do BCom, MCom, everything out there. In this time and age when whole university education people drop out because they can't afford, for us students to have that indebtedness to Swami is something amazing. You'll never be able to. After I left for 18 years, from 1990 to 2008, no speaking, no going near Swami, nothing. I had my first darshan after 10 years in 2003. And then in 2008 I had a chance to attend the alumni thing, and I was supposed to just speak those 2 words, 2-minute talk and be done with it. Then last minute one student comes and says, "Sir, take this candle." I said, "Okay, what am I supposed to do with it?" He says, "No, when Swami calls for the cakes, they have 3 huge cakes and another candle. So when Swami calls for that, you have to go and you have to give this, light it and give it to Swami to light the cakes." I said, "Okay, is that all?" He said, "No, that's not all. You have to take Swami's hand, put the candle in Swami's hand, then hold Swami's hand and you light the candle." I said, "Wow, I didn't expect that bonus there." That was 4 times I had to light the candle, and of course, that. Just before I finish this section of thinking of Sai, and I could go on for another hour, but I cut down the topic. This is our 3rd BCom program, where the 3rd degree students, when they were graduating, Swami would give us this exclusive interview, and he would give us discourse and some guidance, and we would eat with Swami, and it was a very intimate, private moment. That time, all of us sang what was my favorite song at that time, was "Mother of Mine" by Jimmy Osmond. So I'm going to hopefully it'll work. Have the volume on, please.
All of my life
the good times. Come back to the little more specific item was emulating Swami. So besides thinking of Bhagwan all the time, I've found that when I look at the youth around, or for that matter even the grown-ups, we easily make role models or idols in our life. If we have a great sports personality, then we would start aping that person because we admire that person. And our admiration is reflected in the way we dress like him or her, or the way we behave, our demeanor, everything. Why? Because we want to be that person. And that is the sure sign that we admire that person. Then why not with Swami? If really I admired Swami, if he was my role model, then why would I not emulate him? And so I thought, why not take some of Swami's qualities? What are the qualities that I can try to bring into my life? Of course, Swami's got 1008 names. He's got 108 names, and it's impossible to put all of them into perspective. So I picked up those pictures that I had and went through them, and any of the pictures that reminded me of a quality, I thought, let me give this a name, a caption, and thereby I can remind myself. So here goes. As I was doing that, I opened a book and I see this quotation. The way in which an avatar has to be used for one's liberation and uplift is: watch his every step, observe his actions and activities, follow the guiding principle of which his life is an elaboration. Mark his love, his compassion and his wisdom. Try to bring it into your own life. And my heart went, whoa, Swami heard my prayer, because I'm just thinking of that topic. I flip a page of one book and there's this quotation which is just perfect. Then I continue. So I put the pictures together and it said, Bhagwan's love for all creation. So you feel that compassion, and since then we've had a pet, a cat, and it's different. It's to be able to love something which is not in the normal way. I can imagine how Swami loved his pets, because they respond so beautifully, and that is just one example of how I could try to emulate him. Dignified demeanor. The way Swami walks is so graceful, so magnanimous, so magnificent. He's not joking, he doesn't behave cheap. And that's something which he's actually teaching us, that this is how you should conduct. In fact, how we carry ourselves teaches others to respect us, teaches others to behave. Otherwise, can you imagine an audience of thousands of people who may be chit-chatting a little bit, but the moment Swami enters the Purnachandra auditorium, I think there's hushed silence. Why is that hushed silence? It is that beautiful, dignified demeanor that Swami is projecting. And that we see in many people in our lives around. Why? Because they carry themselves so beautifully. It's not that you're not going to be cheerful. Whenever students would hear a discourse about silence or anything, and then from Swami, and then they would put on this face, this frown on the top. The whole day they're walking around like this, looking down. And Swami would catch them and say, why a castor oil face? Huh? Why have you put on this castor oil face? Dignified demeanor. Self-confidence. Again, I told you how somebody who's with shorts, 14-year-old, comes back to his brother's house, throws the books down, and he says, I'm going, I have to change the whole world. What audacity! Who can do that? Urvakonda, some place where you can't even pronounce the town. And here, this person has made that declaration with what confidence? And that he has not said it lightly, he's done it. That is something which Swami has also told us to emulate. Effective communicator. When Swami speaks, he communicates. When he doesn't speak, he's communicating even more. He just has to look once or not look. And there itself, everything is conveyed. And this again, I told you the anecdote about how he didn't plan for his speeches. He just gave it extempore, seeing the audience. Ever blissful. Just closes his eyes and he goes into that trance. Inspiring, always goading us, leading by example. Dedicated to his mission. We have a 5-day week. In India there is 5.5 days. But he has a 7-day week, 365 days. Selfless service to society. His visions are grand and he's serving so many people. Loving, caring parent. There are so many stories. Of course, you'll have heard of one of the students, I'm not sure, but I'll repeat it anyway. This student is a very good singer, And he was sitting in the bhajan hall and he was singing Sai Pita or Mata Sai. And Bhagwan was sitting on the chair and chanting. This boy, parent lived in East Prashanti, EA1, first house, as where you park your chappals, right in a Ganesh. Mother is very sick, she's a heart patient, and she was almost on her deathbed in the house, and only the father is there. And this boy is singing Sai Pita or Mata Sai. Within a few lines, Bhagwan gets up and walks out of the thing. Now, this boy might have been thinking that Swami didn't like his bhajan or he's out of form or something's wrong. Swami went out, left the mandir premises, went out of East Prashanti, went straight to this boy's house, knocked on the door, and the father is surprised to see Swami there. Goes inside the house, takes the glass of water on the table and pours it into the mother's mouth. And this father thinks that it is the end because Akashatam Patitam Toyam, when you pour the thing. So, and Swami goes and sits back in the bhajan hall and as if nothing had happened. Apparently, when Swami poured the water, he saved the mother's life who was about to die. The father is normal, but the mother is still alive. And then when Swami said that, if this boy singing Sai is my mother and father, how can I sit on the chair seeing that his physical mother is dying? So I went to the house, I saved her. This is the kind of, and there are so many stories like this where he takes personal attention where even the warden does not know, nobody knows, but Swami goes out there and helps. He's a wonderful storyteller, a true friend and bhakta sakha. A true friend is one who knows your past, present, future and still loves you. With my past, I had finished my first year in Vrindavan and Swami was going to Mumbai, so I also went to Mumbai. And when we went to Mumbai, we waited for a long time. I decided I'm not going to go to my parents' place till Swami gives namaskar and permission. So we waited and then finally after a long time Swami called us. And if you know, Dharma Kshetra in Mumbai is on a hill. Swami's mandir is on the hill. You have to go up the steep slope. So we went up running and I was ahead of the group of students. As I reached Swami, Swami calls me and says, "Hey Mayur, idhar aao." He says, "Tumhara wo girlfriend hai na, old girlfriend, don't meet her." He mentioned the name. Can you read it? I have never mentioned to Swami, but he knew her. So I was shocked, but I said, "Okay, Swami." I went home, and everybody was sleeping. I opened my tijori, my small little cupboard, took out all the love letters and the photographs, ripped it all up, chucked it, threw it, everything, burned the boards. Next morning, I'm sitting in the darshan. Aarti is over and there's a huge crowd. No way we can go ahead. So the moment that Aarti was over, Swami went up in the car. And I was turning around to go back home when suddenly one Sevadal comes. "Mayur, Mayur, who's Mayur?" I said, "I am Mayur." He said, "No, Swami's calling me. Go up, rush." So I sprint up and me and another student. As we reach upstairs, Sathya is a place, there's a big meditation hall and there's an interview room attached. As I enter in that big hall, as big as this probably, Swami is alone there. So me and the other student go up to Swami and Swami takes us for an interview and inside he creates Vibhuti, gives me and says, "I'm very happy with you." Confirming what I had done in the night by tearing everything up and not calling anybody or anything. And then he blessed me on the head. And you won't believe it, for 2 weeks I didn't want to talk to anybody, I didn't want to meet anybody, I was absolutely in bliss. It was a very amazing feeling. I could not get my finger off my forehead like this. I just wanted to sit like this all the time, avoiding any company. Anybody comes to talk, I say, yeah, you want to go away. And that feeling for 2 weeks was just fantastic. So that is the true friend. And then talking about the future. I was a confirmed bachelor for 12 years. Whenever you're in Vrindavan or in Puttapati, you look down and walk. You're not supposed to go anywhere. And at that time, one day, Swami came into the mandir around 1988. It was just after I finished my PhD. And all of us have our fixed places in the mandir. And so that when Swami looks at an audience like this, he knows exactly who's missing. So I was sitting behind, my place is behind the pujari. So I was sitting there from the mandir door, from here, he's telling the gentleman there, where I'm supposed to, "Hey Mayur." And all the ladies are sitting, all the whole hall is full, just before bhajan. "Hey Mayur, Pendli Chesta, are you going to get married?" I'm not going to answer. I went quietly behind the pujari so that I'm out of line of sight of Swami. And Swami standing there, he said, I know he's going to get married to an Anandpur student. And it's happened. My wife is from Anandpur. There are other stories, but I'll go ahead. Just to show that as a Bhakta Sakha, as a friend, he knows your past, present, future, everything. Cheerful, fun-loving. No castor oil face. So I would say the first sign of the fact that you're becoming spiritual is that you're cheerful. Why? Because you love God and God loves you. How can you be sad at that? Very patient. For 80 years he's been telling us the same things and it is just not going into our head. That's why Swami calls us Dunna Pota, he buffalo. Why? Because when you walk through Puttaparthi and you see those buffaloes and the cowherd boy with a stout stick, he's whacking them on the back, and what's the reaction? That's all there is, the reaction. So you're Dunna Pota, thick skin. Down to earth, simple. I just thought you would knock Swami down because they were rushing. But they just want to be close to him, and Swami also, like a mother, receives them. He doesn't mind that part of it. Prolific writer. This is the only avatar who has written so much first hand that it is a sad thing that I don't know Telugu. I bought a book, learn Telugu in 30 days. And it's about 32 years and I haven't finished. But forget reading the Telugu, even if the English, if you finish in this lifetime, is not enough to assimilate it. Strict disciplinarian. And my God, for those people who have been in the workshop, the less said the better. Just an experience to have. Remotely, all the office bearers in the Sai organization are going through the same thing. Always encouraging. I remember a time when we were going to do Sankaracharya drama in Shanmukhanand Hall in Mumbai. And Mumbai means Bollywood. All professionals are singing in front of Swami, and here we are coming, a bunch of PhD non-trained actors wanting to do Sankaracharya drama in the most elite hall. And after all the singers have gone, Swami said, nervous? Just because all these people are there? Don't worry, everything will be fine. And when we actually finished, when the drama was going on, there was no place in the hall. People were sitting in the aisles, and they had put TVs outside, and there was a whole crowd on the road. And there were people shedding tears. Not because of the way we were acting, because of Swami's presence. Just Swami being there matters all. That energy is so powerful. So that itself was Swami encouraged. Perfectionist. Whenever Swami went out for darshan or any time, he would always make sure his hair is prim and proper, the robe is perfect and all that. And he would tell us that whether you get marks or not, you should never get any remarks. And he says, see, I am wearing this robe, not because to tell everybody I am a sannyasi. So you see, the neck is covered all the way up. The robe covers all the way to the ankles, to the wrists. The robe covers all the way to the feet. He says, whenever you dress, you should dress in such a modest way that people don't get ideas about you. Should that demeanor and dignified stuff has to be it. Love of 1,000 mothers. Always feeding himself. Whenever we are in Kodaikanal and other places, he could have told somebody, give it to them. No. He would personally feed it, give each student. When we were sitting in the bus, you won't believe it, he was giving the wet ones to us. Wipe your sweat, here, wipe your sweat, 1 month. Then give the milk, and continuously giving something or the other. Leading by example. The previous one. Leading by example, meaning that he would do it actually himself. And this is the cherry on the ice cream. Where if I have a little bit of some unique quality, I want to flaunt it. I want to show everybody that I'm good at this. Recognize it. Here, Bhagavan, as an avatar who has such tremendous power, prowess, everything, at the same time, he bends down and he behaves like a human being, which is a very tough thing. I mean, when you take a child, and as a grown-up, I want to talk to the child, I bend down. I talk in a way the child understands. But how long can I sustain it? I can only do it for so much time. Can you imagine as an avatar who has that power, who has that whole universe to run, for those 80 or 92 years or 96 years, he is going to behave like a human being and play that role beautifully. Perfectionist. That's something which I admire. The third most important thing for me is practicing his presence. Practicing the presence, because I felt that we talk very lightly, I talk lightly about Swami's omnipresence. Oh, Swami is everywhere, this, that. At the same time, I'm talking rudely to somebody, I've got road rage, I've got all kinds of things happening around me, and I say Swami is omnipresent. And this is very contradictory for myself. I wanted to put this in perspective for myself. So I said, do I feel his presence in me and around me? Questions that I ask. Do I act in the way I would in his physical presence? If Bhagavan was actually sitting here just now, would I be doing anything or behaving the way I am behaving right now? Then I am denying it. I am denying his presence, because then my behavior doesn't act to that. If he is in me, what would he feel about the thoughts going on? For me, it's easy, because it's sitting in the portico, somebody would come, hey, tumna pota, I know what's going on in your mind. Where am I? You would ask us that. And you would actually confirm the thoughts. And it's really scary to be with somebody who can read all your thoughts. Right? Are Swami's teachings as important to me as his physical presence? And again, this is Swami gave in the interview. He says, you come to Swami in front of me and you bow down and you say hello, this, that, and all that, and you express your love physically. But when it comes to practicing Swami's teachings, you're not. Whereas what is really dear to me is my teachings. I've come here for a purpose to teach you something. I am not important. What I want to teach you is important. If you ignore that, then you're actually ignoring Swami. Am I being emotional or devotional? Emotional meaning that, suddenly one bhajan comes and we all cry, and then we feel great about it, that I have elevated because I cried during the bhajan. Right? And that lingers on for some time. So that emotion, is that important, or is the devotion, which is perhaps in my limited understanding is a little more mature, a little more calm. It's much more peaceful, where all the vicissitudes of life, ups and downs, you are able to bear with them with fortitude, with calmness. That's more devotion. Not that you should not cry, not that you should not express your emotion. That is something which comes. Is Sai the center of my life? Or is it that I have 20 things to do and the 21st one is Sai? It should be like the solar system, the sun there, and everything that orbits around it is connected to the sun. So Swami should be that, I feel I should be for me in my life, as the center of my life. Do I have faith in his invisible protection around me? Swami says that, when you go sit in a plane, you don't even see the pilot. Yet you trust your life with him for that 5 hours or 10 hours, wherever you're sitting. Here, Swami is with you, in you, around you, all the time, looking after you, what is best for you. And that faith we lack. So I'm trying to tell myself and remind myself, no, Swami is looking after, Swami is looking after. So this is what I do to practice. Having daily frequent conversations with him. Meaning that even if he's not here, I'm sitting in the car, I talk, oh, Swami, do this for me, Swami, do that. Or, Swami, this is really nice. Just keep conversing with him. Going on fantasy trips with him in my imagination. If I'm going for a jog, I think Swami is jogging next to me. If I'm sitting in the car and I'm driving, I drive with my left hand, and in my passenger seat, I just put my hand like this, thinking Swami's fingers are through mine, I'm driving. And its feeling is beautiful. It just manifests, it gives that feeling that he's right there. In fact, trying to excel in my job as an offering to him. Meaning that if I'm working at work, I'm not trying to please my boss. I'm thinking Swami's watching. Swami is going to see whether what kind of work I'm doing, how honest I am. And so making that my perspective of success. Using nature to feel his companionship. Swami gave 2 poems. How do you know that I am near you? And the other one was, how do you know that you are near me? In one of those, he was mentioning that whenever you feel the cool breeze, know that I am caressing you. It's a wonderful, beautiful thing. And that again is a nice experience to imagine. Even if it's creative visualization, whatever you call it, it's still a very fantastic experience. Offering the day at his lotus feet. One devotee asked, in fact one student asked, Swami, whole day we are busy with so many things, we don't have time to do puja and all those things. What to do? He says, all you do is, at the end of the day, in the night, you just close your eyes and say, Sai Ishvara Arpanamastu. Whatever I did, my thoughts, words and deeds today, Swami, I offer all of them at your lotus feet. And Swami, work becomes worship. Associating mundane things in life with Swami. For example, we offer a plate of food before we eat ourselves at home. Like that. Mundane things which everything we associate. If it's a beautiful sunset, Swami, wow, what a beautiful sunset you created. Associate everything with Sai. Behaving in a way that truly represents a devotee of Sai. If there is time, I have a slide right at the end where one day Swami called a few of us to clean Swami's storeroom upstairs during 60th birthday. And I found Swami's passport and I found a whole bunch of letterheads. And I took all that to Swami, and Swami kept the passport, and he said these letterheads, wonderful, beautiful letterheads, olden times. Swami's posing on that like this and all that. So those letterheads I took, and Swami said, cut off the top part and give these papers to the students to do research. Don't waste the paper. I took a few souvenirs for myself. And then later on, I found recently when all the stuff came to Canada, that in between there were two letters. One letter which Swami, an article that Swami had written for, I think, Sanatan Sathya, but never got published. And another Telugu poem written in 1964, on the 1st January 1964, which again was not published. So this letter is telling Swami's expectations of the devotees, how he wants us to behave. So if we were to behave and step outside and say that somebody says, oh, this is how a Sai devotee behaves, that's not being true to the Sai way of living. Daily checkup from the neck up, introspection. Basically, sit down at night. Is it good? Is it bad? Did Swami like it? Did Swami not like it? These are exact Swami's words in the interview. You must always think, would Swami like it or not Swami? Think before that. Alochana. Making Sai my best friend. I'm going to cut short and go to some of the most undertaking a sadhana. This is the one favorite one he knows. The first year I joined the hostel, it was right from Bruce Lee and fighting movies and Western movies, suddenly to yoga, meditation, and what is Swami Sivananda books, Yogananda books, all that spiritual 180-degree turn. And so I went and I found a group of students who were doing yoga all the time. As I was reading the books, I got fascinated with this Kundalini yoga. And I said, I must practice this. So, and Swami at that time only gave a discourse on Gayatri and Jyoti meditation. How you should take the Jyoti to all the different parts of the body. So in our Vrindavan hostel, there was another hostel next to that. It was half constructed and empty. So what I would do, go into one of the rooms, lock myself up and put the candle and then try to stare at the candle and close my eyes and imagine it. But wind is blowing, so it's not flickering all the time. So what I did was took a notebook. In India you get that 200-page notebook, hardbound. So I tore one off and I put it in a V shape like this around the candle. The candle is in the middle. And I used to stare at it and wait for that experience, because I read the exact experience, how Kundalini goes up and all that. So I sat down, I'm meditating, many days pass, weeks pass, months pass, I don't know. And then suddenly one day I'm meditating and I'm seeing that the light is there. It's becoming brighter, brighter, brighter. And becoming very warmer, hotter. And suddenly I open and see the candle, the cardboard, all in one big flame, I thought the Kundalini was going up and that whole thing crashing. I was so disillusioned, I said, no, this was not in the book. Anyway, I sort of gave up that meditation and all that, and then a few days later, I don't exactly remember the gap, but one day Swami came to the portico, he was standing there, and Swami looked at me and said, hey Mayur, come here. Then in Telugu he said, Neeku knack ledora nu crack aipotuna. You don't have any knack, you're going to become a crack. In front of 380 students, he's calling me a crack. I go hesitatingly, and Swami says, he gave a beautiful discourse, and in that he said that if you go on staring at the candle, you're going to become a nervous wreck. And then he gave the Ashtanga Yoga, discourse on Ashtanga Yoga, the eightfold path of Patanjali, in which he says Yama, Niyama, Asana, Pranayama, Pratyahara, Dharana, Dhyana, and Samadhi. And he said that you have to go step by step into each of these. You can't just jump into the fourth or fifth rung. It's a slow progress. And so he spent a whole hour and a half in doing this. Again, for me, it's an eye-opener because I didn't tell anybody about my Kundalini escapades there, but Swami knew about it. And then he responds. Whenever there is a sincere effort, he responds to this. Some few others that are very close and which Swami told me to, accepting gifts from parents. At that time, I was all the time in the hostel, and parents would come from US and other places bringing gifts. So they gave me a sleeping bag. Within a few days, Swami gave me a sleeping bag. Then they gave me a flask so that I can drink hot milk at night. And within a few days, Swami gives me a flask. Then they came on another trip, they gave me a beautiful flashlight with that, tube light and blinker and all that. Not long after that, Swami gives me another flashlight. 3 things, and every time I'm telling my father about this gift, then they come and give me the state-of-the-art pen which had that digital clock on the top. At that time it was state-of-the-art. There's a ball pen, you twist, and there's a digital clock on it. So they give me that, and it's my father's 60th birthday. Swami is about to call them into the interview room for the Shashti Purti, 60th birthday celebration. And Swami is coming back from the Sairam shed, and he says, Mayur, take. And he throws exactly same pen with the digital clock on it. When I show it to my dad afterwards, he says, Mayur, isn't there a pattern? I mean, everything I'm giving you, Swami is matching it. So he wants that you depend on him, not on us. And so they stopped giving anything after that. So this is Swami is telling that, once you give yourself, offer it to Swami, depend on him because he's going to look after it. Don't have to ask anybody else. The father is a Kuber Bhandar, the wealth of Kuber, and we are going and begging in the street. Desire and boon. There was a book in which I read, and this has moved me much. Anytime there was a Swami sitting in a chair upstairs above the interview room, and as Swami was sitting, there was a basket of fruits behind Swami. So this devotee who was at that time was very close, he says, Swami, I want an apple. So Swami takes it and gives it to him in his hand. But before he lets go, he says, if you ask, it is desired. If I give, it is a boon. And he leaves it at that. So it was an amazing thing because we constantly ask Swami this, that, another, and those are all desires. He knows what to fulfill. Those are the boons that we get from Swami. I want Swami. There was a student, and Swami said, ask what you want. Nothing, Swami. I want nothing. Chapura, ask what you want. Imagine God asking me what you want. I'll give it to you. Nothing, Swami. Finally, 3rd, 4th time, he knew that Swami is not going to leave. He said, Swami, I want Swami. Swami is saying like this. That is not nothing. That is everything. I can't give you. How Swami put that in perspective is very nice. And then body, mind and senses. We were sitting in the interview room and doing Path Seva, and Swami said in Hindi, Tumhara tan, man or dhan, Swami ko arpan kiya. Tan meaning the body, man the mind, dhan means wealth of senses. Have you offered all that to Swami? Yes, Swami, all of us. All lies, Rajut. Says, your tongue full of disease, your body full of disease, Asangam. Your mind, mad monkey. No. 1,000 mad monkeys. No. 1,000 drunken mad monkeys. It's not in your control. How can you offer to God? Swami, is that not? Senses, Nenchapana. I won't say anything after that. So he says, if all these things are not in your control, how can you offer to Swami? And then Swami said that all I want is your love. And I am ready to give my blood for it. It's very powerfully looking in the eyes, and he said, because whatever you are giving me, already I gave you. The only thing that is yours is your the love which I want back from you. Minding the mind. I was standing for darshan in that portico. Swami's car pulls up, and the driver is there. Swami is sitting in the back seat. It's a Fiat, blue Fiat, I remember. And next to Swami is the warden. As the car is about to leave, Swami looks from inside and I'm standing there. He says, come, sit down in the car. So I sat down in the car and next to the driver. And the car goes out. As the car leaves for Kadubadi and Beltur village and all that, and nobody's speaking anything, really quiet. So I look back and I see Swami looking at me like this, staring with his head tilted, constantly, not blinking, just staring at me. So I make bold to turn around and I'm looking at Swami like this. And he doesn't stop staring, he's just staring straight at me. So I want to do some small talk to break the ice. So I said, Swami, at night when I sleep, I miss you so much, I can't get sleep. All jhoot ra, you not only sleep well, you snore. Knowing that I got caught, I changed the topic. I said, Swami, this mad mind, how to control this mad mind? He says, the most easiest thing in the world is to control the mind. the most difficult thing in the world is not to control the mind. So I'm lost. He saw that incredulous face of mine. So he said, explain. He took his handkerchief and see. My 5 fingers, they're holding the handkerchief. So much effort the 5 fingers have to make to hold the handkerchief. Let it go. It's gone. So easy. He says, so also, what is this? Is this handkerchief? It's like the mind. Every single thread is a thought. A bundle of thoughts makes the handkerchief, makes the mind. If there are no thoughts, there's no mind, nothing to control. And so he explained it that way very nicely about controlling the mind. Of course, after I finished my PhD research in '84 for the first time, he sent us all to Mumbai. When I came back, the first thing in the portico, he sat down. He said, "Hey Mayur, you saw TV in Mumbai?" I said, "Yes, Swami, I saw some news." No, in fact, I don't want you to see it. It's your mad monkey mind. I don't want you to see it at all. And he did not allow me to go to any research work outside after that. The only time when I really had to go, he came with us to Madras, because Kothari Institute, we had to do some research. He took us with him and made sure that Sevadal came with us. So that mother who's protective, right? No way I can see TV after that. But he is so careful about that TV. Swami calls it television. It's a poison that has put in people's mind. I'm going to skip some of these. Okay. This is a Sankaracharya drama. The moment we get an egoistic thought, Swami nips it. The connection between Swami and us falls. So the Sankaracharya drama was happened quite a few places, Shanmukhanand Hall and even in Puttaparthi and Chowdaya Memorial Hall in Bangalore. And during the practices, Swami loved our scene. This is a scene where the Pandits are making fun of Ashtavakra. This is one of the stories there. One great sage who's a hunchback, and we are the haughty Pandits who are making fun of that guy. And Swami loved the scene, and he would again and again ask us to enact it because it was funny. And at one point in time, he must have thought that this is going to my head. So suddenly he said, "This Mayur, he is overacting too much. He should reduce it a bit, So invariably, whenever anything slightly goes into your head, he can detect it. He'll catch. There was a time when he gave an interview for all my parents in Puttaparthi, and then I was sitting there, and he says, "Okay, get him married now. It's time he has to get settled in life and all that." I said, No, Swami, I want to be with you all the time." "What do you want?" I said, "Swami, I want Swami." Then he looked at me and said, "I shall see." Like, a gauntlet thrown at him, "I shall see." And then for 1.5 years, he didn't speak to me. He would send all the authorities to say that I was not behaving properly, I had too much ego. And every time I had to sit in the front with a letter, and Swami would ignore you. And naturally, when Swami ignores you, everybody around knows, oh, this boy is out of form. So if you sit next to him, Swami won't come there. So they want to avoid you. And then when you go to class, you have to teach the students who are sitting there when they know you're in the workshop. How can you pull them up, right? So, and the long and short of it is that Bhagavan puts you through that workshop so that we go into that deep introspection where we say, what did I do now? Because we don't know, we are going into that egoistic trips. We don't know what's wrong with us. But when Swami reacts like this, he's inculcating the habit of introspecting. And that's the first thing, that reaction, anybody comes, any student you ask or any devotee you ask, moment Swami didn't speak, what did I do wrong? What did I do wrong? What was wrong? That introspection habit of first looking at the fault yourself, not blaming somebody else or a circumstance, is something very precious. In that picture, I forgot. In that picture, Swami had gone for seva in one of the villages. He sent word that Mayur should walk next to me, but he's not talking to me. So he wants to see that you are in that treatment. At the same time, you are in... Okay, Swami gave this discourse in which he said, the best prescription to cut your ego. Imagine this huge galaxy. In that galaxy, the Milky Way is a very small Milky Way. In that Milky Way, the solar system is even smaller. In the solar system, the Earth is only one of the planets. In that Earth, India is one of the countries. In that India, Andhra Pradesh is only one state. In Andhra Pradesh, Puttaparthi is only one small town. In Puttaparthi, there are thousands of people. Who are you? What is there in you that you should be egoistic? Think of it like that. And then when you do that kind of a feeling, you feel humble. Then right away he switches the topic around and he says, so who's greater? God is greater or devotee? So he says, Swami, God is greater. He says, no. A devotee who loves God so much and captures God in his heart, the devotee is greater. So that way you would give that example also. I'll tell you one of the very nice. Car drive through Parthi, this is nice. I was sitting in the portico again in Puttaparthi, and Swami, after the morning darshan and bhajan is over, he would have a tiffin and then go for a drive. So again, this is in 1982, just after my BCom. He's sitting in the car and he says, come and sit in the front. So as the car is going through Puttaparthi, Mr. Nishani from Guatemala was sitting next to Swami. Swami is talking in fluent English with this person. And that person says, Swami, I can't control my mind. Swami creates a plum and says, yeah, eat this, you'll control your mind. And then after that, at one point in time, they were very quiet. So I turned around and I made bold to ask Swami, Swami, why do you put us in Maya? Meaning that you're speaking such fluent English, why do you want your Telugu thing translated, you know? So he said, when I gave Vishwarup Darshan, the universal darshan to Arjuna, I gave him special vision to see it. Yet, when he saw the vision, he said, no, Swami, I can't bear it. He said, if I come in front of you with 4 hands, Shankha, Chakra, Gada, Pargit Pota Rara, you'll run away from here. So he says, in order to keep you dear and near to me, I have to put you in Maya. And that's how Swami put it. He didn't say Krishna gave the vision, he said, I gave the vision. I'm going to skip through another few things. Father's experience. My father is a lawyer for 40-45 years. This I'm talking about 1985. 40-45 years practicing in High Court, Mumbai. And he had a thumping practice, especially because court cases, there, the judge will die, the lawyer will be gone, the original client will be dead, and the sons will be taken over. It lasts that long. Currently, the backlog of cases is 353 years to complete all the cases. Okay, that's the estimate right now. So law is a very thumping business there, and Swami gave an interview to parents, and so my father asked Swami how to remove Maya or illusion. So Swami said, okay, so how many sons do you have? How many sons do you have? So he mentioned the 3 names. How long have you been practicing for the law? This. Where do you live? And Swami asked him 10-15 questions. And after he answered all of them, Swami said, see, so much information in your head, how can you let the Maya go? Then he said, in 2 weeks, leave everything and come to Prashantilayam to teach in my university. So you won't believe it, 40 years practice, he handed the keys of the office to my elder brother, who had just become a fresh rookie lawyer, gave him that thing, and okay, I'm going. And that, my brother was just flabbergasted, but Swami pulled him out of that Maya, took him to Prashantilayam, and he was a lecturer for mercantile law. That's how Swami, if he wants, in 1 minute he can hasten up the process of years and probably lives of spiritual progress. Transforming power of Swami's love. Swami told us in the portico that my biggest miracle is not the creations that I do or the big other saving. It is transforming an individual's character. It's the toughest thing to do. To inspire somebody to become a different transformed person is way more tougher than doing all the other miracles. And that's what I see in my life, because from there, I've become there. That was my Bruce Lee t-shirt that they showed Swami, and I became rowdy. The all-encompassing love that Swami has. Swami's love for his students, of course, all of us know. Swami's love for the devotees, we know. Swami's love for the animals, we know. And I'm going to skip this video. But I was amazed at one small little thing that I read. In my very first year when I joined Swami's college, on Thursdays we had assembly. And in that assembly, we had some moral classes and some spiritual talks by some eminent people. Our principal got a letter from a person by the name of Betsy Gisner. And this lady was a non-devotee at that time. And she was a medium, if you know what a medium is. A person who gets possessed by a spirit, and then she writes something and the spirit leaves, and then she reads like somebody else wrote it. So this Betsy Gisner was in Glastonbury, somewhere in Trent, in UK. And she enters this chapel, and as she enters the chapel, she gets possessed. And after the spirit leaves, she reads that letter, and it is signed by the spirit by the name of Amk Sor. A-M-K-S-O-R-E, and the spirit signs it with a cross on the A. Introduces himself as a contemporary of Saint Francis of Assisi, and that writes this part about Swami. Again, the time not permitting, I can share this in an email and you can read it. But the question of divinity of Baba, we would comment. This being of light is ineffaceable in his radiance, which suffuses and envelops all those who are fortunate enough to come within his radiance. He is truly a divine being. We would have you realize that those who are on our planet of living are very far from perfection of one such as this holy man among men, the healer of those who desperately need his help. We are nothing when compared with this flame of truth. We bow in adoration at the feet of this divine being. We feel love, the all-encompassing love, which he inherently has at the core of his very being. The love that sustains, the love that comforts, the love that encourages and envelops those who travel from far places to be in his presence. We rarely wish to be incarnated in flesh once again, but to experience the glory of his presence, we are willing to don once again the cloak of your human condition. These opportunities are rare and precious, and in the space of your earthly incarnation, you will never have the opportunity to see a presence as this. When you see the physical body of Baba, there will be aroused within you an ecstasy such as that engulfed by Francisco. But even more deeply will this spiritual expansion be felt. This is somewhat an ordinary way of trying to express our inexpressible reaction, for in the presence of Baba, you are in the presence of God made flesh, not as mere men and women are gods in making, but a force of such inestimable power and beauty that there are truly no words in your language to describe this experience. This is that letter which Swami I found, in which he mentions that if you say one thing and do another thing, if you sing bhajans and everything but at the same time behave in a different way, then that show becomes a no-show and you harm the Sai name. And so all of you, the real love is selfless devoted love and passion-free balanced love are the two eyes of Sai. Practice is more important, not publicity. This is the only way you can love, and Sai loves that treasure. And then he goes on to say, this is my wish. I will email this if you want to see it. You know, during Shankaracharya drama practices, Swami went up to his bedroom, came down with a brown paper bag. And I was wondering what he came straight up to me. He opened it and there was a nice bracelet, which was a costume jewelry for the drama. So he put it on my hand, and I was wondering why he did it, because the drama was not there, it was another time. And he had given us shawls from the great Pandits who do the Dasera chanting. He took those back, but this bracelet he left with me. And for me it is him tying it, saying that now you are mine for the rest of your life. And so this is something which I still have it with me. And Swami said, true love and devotion to Swami cannot be part-time, it has to be full-time. Every moment should be spent. Otherwise, and also one more thing he said is that your heart is not a musical chair. Once you put God on it, you can go and put somebody else on it. So Sai is waiting for us to come to him. I want to end with this small little thought. While we were both discussing about the concept of time and whatever it is, we've gone through so many lives. We don't know when we came as a microcosm and how many different hundreds and thousands of beings, insects, birds, animals, how we evolved. And we've come to this human life, which is Jantunam Narajanma Durlabham. The most difficult birth to get is that of a human, Swami says. And so, after having got that, the even greater privilege is to have had a guru. And even greater thing is to have the avatar as a guru. And if in that opportunity we don't take, who knows when we will get that opportunity again to escape from the cycle of birth and death. Now is the time to love him. Who knows if there is a tomorrow. There is one nice movie called Kal Ho Na Ho. And so the Samiti from Mumbai, they converted the Kal Ho Na Ho song into a Telugu, Hindi, English version dedicated to Swami. I'll just play that, and with that I'll close. I again want to thank everybody for this patient hearing. I know it's easy for me to go on talking, but I fervently hope that I've been able to share my personal journey, and even if little of that evokes love in Swami, then this talk has been worth it. Sai Ram.
To know you're never far away, you and I are one. Oh Sai Ram, Sai Ram, we need you now. We need you now. Now is the time to love. To love. Ho na ho. Sai jaisa koi nahi hai. बस वही सबसे हंसी है इस हाथ को थाम लो ये मेहरबान हो न हो हर पल यहाँ जीवन जियो जो है समा कल हो न हो
Sure, you'll all agree when I say that we were all transported to a different world the last couple of hours. We'll conclude with the closing prayers. Just want to remind that we have a breakout session with Dr. Mayur Pandya at Asamai Temple for the young adults and the SSC children. But if anybody else is interested to join, they're most welcome. Mayur has some interesting videos to share, and he has some interesting things to discuss.